OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, you're very welcome along. It's Wednesday morning. Shane is here.
Dobre Rano, as they say in Czech Republic.
Colm is here. Colm, how are you?
G'day. Ger.
You were on a stag weekend.
No, not a stag.
You were on many other people's stag weekends, just not yours.
Yeah, I was in the middle of many stags.
Yeah.
On the flight home, there was these rowdy lads boarding, you know, and they had the whole weekend behind them, like, and everything that was consumed, and they were like on the last dregs of that. And then I was like, imagine you were sitting next to them, and then I sit in the plane. I'm surrounded by this stag.
Sure enough.
On the way home. Thankfully, as soon as we left the land, they fell asleep straight away.
Oh, yeah. That's
lovely.
I was going to say, I could smell the farts from here.
Yeah.
Murphy's Law. Yeah.
I had an aisle seat, though, which is crucial. An aisle seat, you have to forego the view. An aisle seat is fantastic because you're in control for the whole flight. You can get up whenever you want.
I'm an aviation nerd. I gotta be in the window seat.
You can still see out the window.
Yeah,
you just do a bit of leaning.
It's a bit awkward though, isn't it? Looking over two people.
Not at all. No one thinks you're staring right at them when you look across.
They do.
Not
if you were to power rank your nerding things, Shane, where would aviation?
Aviation's top 5. I would say.
Is it?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
You have more than 5.
I have lots more than 5.
Okay, right. That's impressive. Very kind of you to allow your wife to have the aisle seat there, Colm.
She was in the other aisle.
Oh, I see.
That's how we book it.
Holding hands
clever.
across the aisle.
Paying extra to be separate.
That's just optional conversation.
Fair.
You want, and then you can just do your own thing.
Yeah. Now it's separate aisle seats, and before long it's twin beds.
I tell you what happened. I love flying, right? But my left ear is blocked ever since I landed.
Luckily enough.
Yeah.
Can't hear.
The one closest to Ger.
I can only hear you in muffled sounds.
You didn't miss anything.
Someone will have tips in the comments to get rid of that, I'd say.
I can't. I'm trying to blow my nose out of it, trying to get it out, you know.
Oh, lovely.
I can't,
this is the nicest breakfast show that anybody's ever walked up to.
Yeah. Enjoy your weed a bit.
It's bothering me now
morning.
at this stage. I didn't mind it for a while. But I know it's a great city if anyone's ever in the mood. And reasonable. Handy enough flight. Only a little over 2 hours. Different currency. What's the currency called, Shane?
The Czech Koruna.
Koruna. Yeah.
The astronomical clock was...
That's the main attraction, and it's a bit underwhelming, to be honest.
Once an hour, this little skeleton pops out.
It's all right. It was like it's thousands of years old, which is interesting. But Prague Castle's class.
Oh,
that is massive.
That's brilliant.
It's unbelievable. And then Pretine Tower. Oh, I got the name wrong, I'd say. But anyway, their tower is their Eiffel Tower, basically.
Yeah.
And it's technically higher because they counted the hill that the tower is actually placed on.
Yeah, I can see how you would do that.
Yeah, it was built only 2 years after the Eiffel Tower.
All right.
And the Eiffel Tower was built in what year, Shane?
Oh, I'd probably say like the 1910s or 20s.
1889.
Was it?
I also thought it was 20th century, but no. Oh. There you go. But fantastic. The beer there is like the purest beer in the world. Their taps are very clean. They're the biggest beer drinkers in the world per capita.
Did you try Slivovitz? Which is like a plum brandy, a Czech plum brandy.
No.
Powerful stuff. Jesus.
No,
powerful / good or powerful /
It's tasty, but it like
blow your head off.
Blow the head of you.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Obviously, someone swallowed a guidebook and decided that they were going to burp it all over our morning. Come on, Colm. Did you catch any sports over the?
I watched the second half of the Wales match. I was telling Cameron there earlier.
Bad half.
They have a lovely, the bad half. I missed all the good stuff. They have a lovely collection of Irish bars in Prague. Yeah. Like really, actually lovely pubs, and they happen to be the pubs with the best atmosphere.
Yeah.
As we sampled quite a few local ones, tourist ones, and Irish ones. I think the Irish ones are the best.
The city of 1,000 spires because there's so many churches, and yet I think it's the most atheistic country in the world now.
Yeah, 85%.
They all lost their faith after the Purple Revolution and the Russians.
It's a very bohemian city.
Yeah.
Right up your street.
100%. The old town. Gorgeous old town.
Great. Do a walking tour of the Jewish Quarter if you're there.
Yeah.
Wow. The history of Jewish people in Prague is fascinating.
Yeah. There's the cemetery and everything. It's a brilliant city.
All right, you can leave some recommendations in the comments this morning if you want, and we'll leave them there forever.
Would be great.
Right. Where are we starting here?
Well, we've got LeBron, I suppose, overnight, who's done a bit of business. I mean,
what business did he do?
Well, he's broken the NBL time scoring record. My own personal favourite is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he's broken the record. Now, wait to see this. This is the most American thing.
You're a bit hipster though. Why do you love Kareem?
Well, Kareem, of course, made the appearance in my favourite comedy film, Airplane, 1980, I think it was, where the little kid comes into the cockpit and says, "You're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You play basketball for the Los Angeles Lakers." And he's like, "No kid, I'm Roger Murdoch. I'm the co-pilot." And this whole charade continues for the entire movie. It's brilliant. It's like, "Roger, what's our Victor?" And then, of course, the other pilot is called Over. So he's like, "This is Captain Over." It's slapstick, but it's fantastic. So Kareem was there overnight to watch his record being shattered, which was it was one of those awkward American moments. So we have the video here, which is B-roll of the moment, the fadeaway drop shot that LeBron breaks the record, gets the massive points. Everyone's waiting for it. Look at the amount of phones out. Kind of make you a little bit sad.
What? Go on.
And that's it done. And then there's but I think it's 10.9 seconds left in the third quarter when the shot goes in. So there's still time to play in the third quarter, and yet everything stops. You'll see on the clock there, Oklahoma leading 104 points to 99. Oklahoma, I think, go on to win the match as well. But photographers come out, players come out, Kareem comes out, LeBron's family come out. There's a ceremony with the NBA commissioner as well. Kareem hands him the basketball, I think, that he took for the shot. It's like, this is the equivalent of the game being stopped at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the weekend for Harry Kane's moment. Of course, there's a tip-off in football, so it's a bit different, but like, what are the Oklahoma players thinking here?
Oklahoma won, didn't they?
They did, yeah, but it must be like, can we just finish the quarter?
What is wrong with you?
Well,
hang on a second now.
Sorry, I'm saying what they would be thinking.
No, if
they're fellow professionals.
This is exactly what we should be doing. This is everybody who was there last night is going to remember the fact that they were there the night that LeBron broke. They're not going to remember who. These regular season games happen like 5 times a week. They play 1,000 basketball matches a year.
Yeah,
and this is like their greatest scorer in the history of the game. Potentially the most talented player of all time is doing something completely remarkable. This is exactly what we should do.
Could they've waited 10.9 seconds for the end of the quarter at least?
No.
Why? It's only 10 seconds away.
Well, what's the difference?
10 seconds.
When Ger McManus scores whatever it is, the highest ranking point, Conor McManus even, when Conor McManus scores that, right?
But
you should stop.
And if Monaghan are 5 points down to Tyrone and McManus kicks an irrelevant score, a cap over free.
You're never going to remember that game against Tyrone. They're always beating you.
Oh,
you're never going to forget Conor McManus kicking.
They didn't do it for Pat Horgan last year. Does that mean that do you approve of John Terry being substituted in the 26th minute of his last game at Chelsea? Come on. And it did guard of honour for him as he was subbed.
That's outrageous.
Because you hate John Terry, right? And because he's not a very nice man, right? I can see the issue that you might have with that. However, he is literally the greatest, most important footballer in the history of that club. That has been through the whole system. That took them to the highest of high heights that it's possible to get to in football. And you
26th minute, he didn't have the number 81 on his back. Like, it's ridiculous.
Here's what I think about what you just said. I don't believe you. I don't think you believe that. I think you have to say that because you went strong there now on LeBron. I
resent the accusation.
You definitely disagree with the John Terry one.
Why?
You do.
It's his last game. It doesn't matter. I don't know how many games he played. Was it 600 something?
He's played actually 100 or 200 less than Kareem did to get to that point. So
you're talking about LeBron.
Oh, sorry, LeBron. Sorry, I'm completely gone.
These records are really, really important. They're the type of things that kids dream of. They're the reason that those meaningless midweek games between, I don't know, are OKC any good or not? Are they good? Are they? The Lakers are shite, right? The Lakers literally the whole season this year has been, as far as I know, has been essentially about getting him this record. So when the record's broken, you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, do it after the third quarter or after the match.
What difference does it make?
10
seconds left. You're in the middle. Restart the game.
You're in the middle of a quarter, though.
But they can just restart the game. It's like an elongated timeout.
Yeah, but then
I suppose you guys think, they shouldn't have an extended halftime show at the Super Bowl. It's a game. It's like, what?
I wasn't included.
That's different.
What's
with your lack of joy?
It's half time. The players are off the pitch. They don't care how long.
The fact that they played it with 10.9 seconds remaining is the reason that it made the show. You should be happy with that. Mm-hmm. You know?
That's the only reason I wanted to play it.
Always be closing there, Colm.
This is outrageous. But
more joylessness.
But can you imagine any other sports where this would happen?
American football, exact same thing happened.
American football.
Very sure Peyton Manning in the middle of the game. They're like, because it's like, why not? What's wrong with this?
The clip I want to see is how when it resumed afterwards was a bit underwhelming.
Formula One. Oh, Max Verstappen, you're after breaking the number of fastest lap times that Michael Schumacher ever had. Can all the other cars just slow down for a second? Can you all slow down and just go behind Max and wave at him and say, "Good man, Max"? Can you all just put the brakes on there for a second?
But these are generational moments. And it's the reason we all follow sport, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm not saying don't celebrate.
I want to prove it, John.
You're basically saying don't celebrate.
Just celebrate at the right time, at the opportune moment. It's live sport.
The LeBron
You're policing the celebrations.
The Oklahoma players are professional basketballers.
Was this LeBron's request? Do we know? Because it was
Probably.
It was John Terry's request.
It's the most American thing ever. I'm surprised they didn't. The roof didn't open and 5 fucking fighter jets.
I would love to know, was this LeBron's idea? There's no guarantee, of course, he was going to score, whereas Terry was definitely going to reach the 26th minute.
It needed some like Navy SEALs to just come down from the roof on ropes.
No,
that's what it needed. It was just missing that.
You know that the militarization that is like all paid for. That only started in 2006, 2007. They started investing tens of millions in marketing with they had the flyover and stuff before that, but they saw a marketing opportunity. So that's just an injection of money on behalf of the armed forces to try and associate them with sport. Sport should have said no, but sport is guilty of everything, so it takes the money. But in this instance, celebrating the greatest scorer and potentially, as I said, there's a debate about the most talented. That's come around again. Jordan, the greatest winner. LeBron, I don't care. Whatever floats your boat, whether you're Team Messi or Team Ronaldo, it's up to you. It doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that these things are the type of things that inspire greatness in other people.
Do celebrate
he has been on a singular journey to try and get to this point, and he gets there having been like the most heralded teenager in world sports since Freddie Adu, and but then delivering again, 18 seasons.
Celebrate the moment, but get on to the match first, or get on to the end of the quarter.
This match doesn't matter,
but it
does not matter at all.
Oklahoma won the match. Then players might remember beating LeBron in the game where he broke the record.
Well,
Screw him.
It will age well, Shane. In 5 years' time, you'll approve of it.
No, but sorry, you're using Conor McManus as an example to try and pull at my heartstrings. If Johnny Doyle was going to break the record against the Dubs in a Leinster semi-final, and they were 5 points down, and there was 2 minutes left, and he tapped over
scoring
a free
record.
Yeah,
not just the Kildare scoring record.
Say for example,
all-time scoring record.
Yeah.
Stop the match.
But a tap over free to lose by 4 points to the Dubs instead of 5.
Like Pat Horgan.
Maybe, yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think you're going to be calling it at that juncture.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that actually, if it's the all-time scoring record, and actually we had good records and knew what the all-time scoring record was, we might be able to have this conversation in reality. But look, if it happens in an All-Ireland final or a big game,
yeah, but do that. Okay, after the match,
a Leinster final is literally the most irrelevant game in the history of the world.
I'm not being Mr.
Pre-season friendly.
I'm not fun police here. After the match, set fireworks out your ass for all I care. Celebrate till the cows come home.
The Irish Richard Keys has made himself known.
Just after the third quarter or when the game is over, take out with the celebrations.
I don't know if you've seen Richard Keys he has become a delicious troll, right? His trolling has reached the new levels of excellence. He was talking about Pep. It's like, why would Pep leave now? Surely this is the biggest opportunity he's ever had to show his genius when they don't have the most resources. It's a good point there. Wasn't he? I might hit the like button.
Yeah, well, maybe he does have a point. Pep's not going to leave. Pep's getting tetchy.
I think there's a fairly good chance Pep leaves.
Think so?
I think there's a very good chance Pep leaves.
But this process is going to take so long.
This story is explosive.
Yeah.
There is accelerant being poured on the story every day by the English papers. And it's funny, we all go to England for matches from time to time. I think almost everybody who's watching or listening this morning has been to England to see a Premier League match at some point. And when you get over there, you realise just how embedded the football culture is, and the football pyramid that they talk about is real. Every small town has these brilliant facilities, which is, stands on 4 sides, and loads of the amateur football teams have training grounds purchased because one of their players once made it to the old first division, and the money trickled down the pyramid. Football really, 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 really matters. And their sense of injustice that someone came in and allegedly broke the rules and spent a load of money has got people very riled up. And to coin a phrase, the anger is on. People are pissed off about this. Well, they've been pissed off generally about loads of stuff. Yeah. But now all of a sudden there's it's a lightning rod.
Well, Nick Harris was on PM last night talking with Joe, and said if he had to absolutely bet on it, he would think maybe this could be resolved by the end of the calendar year, rather than the years that people think it might take. Like Mick was saying in the news down last night, and I kind of tend to agree with him that and actually, Shane, you said it earlier this week, is when you see the push notification on Monday morning, you're like, they'll get fined, and we'll all move on. But it seems like this really is growing legs, like. But I did kind of think in 3 or 4 years' time this will eventually be resolved and we'll all move on with our lives. But Harris has done a lot of work on it, and was saying to Joe last night, we could know the decision about this before the year is out.
Yeah.
And this could be explosive. I think Pep will go. They win the Champions League, he's going to go.
Well, if they win the Champions League, well, they get to keep the trophy. Panic Stations is the back page of The Sun. This guy is David Panic, KC, King's Council, that means. Manchester City have hired the star striker of the legal world, David Panic, KC, to save their Premier League skin. Silky skills, how top legal eagle David Panic might look like in the Man City kit.
80 grand a day.
As he is revealed as their new defence in the FFP case. Way to step over my bit there, Colm.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
80 grand a day. It's too exciting to keep it in.
Do you want to just sit here?
Would you just not pick someone whose name is Panic?
Panic on the streets of Belfast.
They could have picked anyone.
Dublin, Dundee, Humberside.
Surely there's like someone...
Panic on the streets of Manchester.
Yeah, they could have picked a list with the name Control or like Calm or...
You better be careful here what you say about this guy. He's hot shot.
Yeah.
He is hot shot.
100%.
We think he's amazing.
Oh, he's brilliant. I'm panicking now.
Yeah, around $5 an hour and up to 400 grand a week. A wage not dissimilar to City goal machine Erling Haaland.
Jesus.
I mean, I didn't know such jobs existed when I was a child.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been dreaming of scoring goals in the back garden, would you?
If I'd known. But he has to sit in an office all day.
I mean, it'd
From
be
the
all right.
papers.
I'd say it's a nice office, Shane.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
I'd say, like the wind comes whistling in gently through the leaves of the trees.
Yeah.
The gaff's not bad.
I'd say it's okay.
The fleet of cars.
What is
Whatever it is you want. You can have your own atomic clock.
Oh, yeah. Astronomical clock.
Astronomical clock.
The atomic clock. I don't want that to keep ticking. Yeah, Jesus. Fair. I didn't realise his name was Panic. That's fantastic.
What's next, Colm?
Next is, as producer Kathleen has just written into her notes, let's move on to the teams. This has been coming for a while, Shane, and it's off the back of your Eric Cantona take last week, I want to say.
Well, no, sorry. My take wasn't controversial. Johnny Ward said he was not world class, and Ger chimed in on the crappy quiz the previous week. That's what brought it back into my head. And then Ger chimed in to say he was good, not great. That was the quote. So that got it into my head, and Ger was like, he wouldn't be in your top 10 United players of the Premier. We'll find out this morning if
We didn't say the Premier League here.
Sorry, ever.
Never. We said ever.
Either way.
No, there's a difference.
He was going to be in the top 10 either way, I promise you that.
Football did not begin in 1992.
It didn't.
Yes, but it did for the sake of
did,
this
though.
slot. We're going to have to make it Premier League worthy, because you can say George Best and Bobby Charlton, but sure, how do we know?
Yeah, what we've done is picked the top 10.
You can watch the grainy YouTube footage and go, okay, that's genuinely world class. They're up against the greatest footballers of their era, and they're absolutely dominating them. The Benfica game, are you saying you can't deduce that George Best was world class because you didn't see it with your own eyes?
No, he was, but we wouldn't know how to compare him to more modern players and where to put him in the list.
Well, that's Colm's argument, is that I didn't see him, and so therefore I can't.
If you include every player that's played for United ever, then you really are going kind of almost like an objective, knowledgeable list of these are actually the 10
Duncan
best
Edwards.
players ever.
Duncan Edwards is in the top 10, but where do we put him? We don't know.
So it's that's a little bit like I can't learn anything from history because I didn't see it. There's I just see that teetering into the.
So this is the top 10
off the edge of the abyss there.
No. Myself and Colm have picked our top 10 players of the Manchester United Premier League era from 92 on, from 10 down to 1, ranked. I had Brian Robson originally, but I will own up and say I took him out because Premier League era. I know Robson teetered into that era, but he had probably his best years at United, the late 80s, early 90s before that. So that's why Robson's not in it. There's a reason why Law, Best, Charlton aren't in it.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your twisted logic for
Brian
that?
Robson's not in it because Premier League era. So his best years at United were 89 and early 90s. So that's the reason why he's not in.
This is some weird mental gymnastics bullshit going on here.
United best 10 players of the Premier League era.
That wasn't okay.
Basically, we have to have seen them ourselves.
You've broken the rules.
That's
but
it.
You have to see them yourself. You saw Brian Robson.
Yeah, but right on the borderline.
Yeah, well, that doesn't.
I was young.
I wouldn't have remembered it.
I saw the last year of Roy Keane where he was at Celtic.
Here's
at Celtic.
This is my list. So for the people listening on podcast or listening,
Paul Scholes is your number one. Is this in order?
Don't spoil this.
Is this in order?
It is in order.
What?
This is
Get out.
Top 10 Man United
Get
players.
out
Let me
now.
let the listeners
Get
know.
out.
No.
Get out.
I'm going to defend them here, okay? Can we get it back up on screen so I can remember it? So 10, Dennis Irwin. 9, Ruud van Nistelrooy. 8, Nemanja Vidic. 7, Peter Schmeichel. 6, Cristiano Ronaldo. 5, Eric Cantona. 4 Wayne Rooney, 3 Roy Keane, 2 Ryan Giggs and 1 Paul Scholes. Scholes, the greatest midfielder of the Premier League era, deserves to be the number 1 Manchester United player of the Premier League era.
Scholes number 1 is a big shout.
It's a big shout, but
Big shout.
He couldn't get in the Man United team for a long period of time.
listen,
shout.
He could not get in the Man United team.
He was
for
the
ages.
fulcrum of
He was a sub.
a treble-winning Manchester United team, who was suspended for the final, notably. But the likes of Van der Sar, Stam, Cole, Solskjaer, but Park Ji-sung, of course, close to the team, close to the top 10. But for me, Paul Scholes, undoubtedly,
Not
number
an
1.
automatic choice all the time. Fell out with Ferguson to the point where he left. He quit for a while, and then he actually quit.
Class recognises class.
That
The Real
was,
Madrid players knew
Roy
how good
Keane
he
is
was.
a far superior player to Paul Scholes.
I'd agree with that, but that Scholes quitting thing, that was one match, the League Cup against Arsenal in 2001, and he didn't apologise a few days later.
Scholes continued. Scholes won the second Champions League with United in 08. Roy Keane wasn't around at that point.
Because
we're
he's
talking.
retired. I understand now that the vagaries of age seem to somehow prevent you from being considered a footballer for the things that you did before that happened.
No, it's a matter of opinion, and this is subjective, granted. But
Yeah.
for me, Paul Scholes is the greatest Manchester United footballer of the Premier League era. Fact.
Your opinion's wrong. That's okay. It's good that you've completely ruined your argument here by
How?
derailing it. But put Paul Scholes number 1.
Well, you have Roy Keane number 1 then.
I'm not a Manchester
Yeah,
United
well,
fan,
there you
but
say
I would definitely
700
have,
appearances, 150 goals. He played from 93 to 2013. He was a fulcrum of 20 years of that era, Paul Scholes. Longevity does count. Yeah, I'm sorry, Roy, you left United in 05. Of course that matters here. Scholes went on to win another Champions League, scored a screamer in the Champions League semi-final.
Can I have a look at the list again?
Here's the list again. There's 2 Irish in the list as well.
So Scholes is 1, Giggs is 2, Keane is 3. I mean, Giggs ahead of Keane. But anyway, Rooney's 4, Cantona's 5. So no Rio Ferdinand.
No, I had to pick between. For me, I wanted to pick between Rio or Vidic, and I went with Vidic. I don't know, something about Nemanja Vidic.
Schmeichel ahead of them, right?
Yeah, I could have put Van der Sar in there, but Schmeichel for me.
All right, so it's
Aldo's 6.
Yeah, number 6.
That's very far down.
But it's not that far down. Number 6, 6th best United Premier League player of that's pretty high.
You know, someone in the comments could help you with that.
He was 03 to 09.
I did my elbow the other day.
Someone says Wayne Rooney, the guy that broke the club's leading goal scoring record, yet Scholes is better. Yeah, but Scholes wasn't a striker. Different players. No Park Ji-sung, says Brian.
Exactly,
Yeah,
you
Park was
bottled it. You bottled it. World class. He was world class, and you bottled it.
Shane says, and it's not me, Paul Scholes wouldn't tie Gerrard's boots. You must be fucking joking.
Stop. We'll come to the comments.
Sorry,
we'll come to the comments. But also, Park Ji-sung didn't make your list, even though Park Ji-sung was world class.
A lot of world-class players.
I never said he was in the top 10 United players of the Premier League era. Park was brilliant.
Okay, so Lee Keegan's not in the top 10 players of the Premier League era.
Different.
Is he?
He didn't play in the Premier League. Different.
What bullshit Premier League era
Keegan,
is your equivalent?
I have been on record saying Lee Keegan is the greatest Mayo footballer of all
is
time.
in the colour television era, I'd say.
Lee Keegan is the greatest Mayo player of all time. And I've said that. I said that the day I said it.
Teammates say that.
Yeah, I said it. So,
Right, go on, Colm.
Throw it up there. So, what I went for is this Andy Cole, number 10.
Are you the only one? Did they put your picture on yours?
did you? Yeah.
Oh, I missed it, sorry.
Colm looks like he's going to a wedding.
I dressed up for it.
Yeah.
That's how seriously I take this. Andy Cole, number 10. Dennis Irwin, 9. David Beckham, 8. Which I think was actually harsh in Beckham now that I put him in 8. 7 was Schmeichel. 6 was Paul Scholes. I put Scholes 6. I think that's fair for Scholes. 5, Van Nistelrooy. 4, Cantona. 3, Rooney. 2, Roy Keane. 1, Cristiano. Now, going back, Andy Cole, what an underrated player. I was looking back at Andy Cole's statistics there last night, right? So, in the 98-99 season, 17 Premier League goals, right? The year before, 97-98, 15 Premier League goals. That was actually arguably more impressive because that was the first season without Cantona, and Roy Keane was injured for the vast majority of it.
Yeah.
And then following the treble-winning season, when, understandably, it'd be a bit of a lull after that extraordinary season of achievement, he scored 19 Premier League goals in 28 Premier League games in 1999-2000. Got into the PFA Team of the Year that year as well. And in the 93-94 season, just before his move to United with Newcastle, he scored a bundle of goals and got Young Player of the Year and Golden Boot in the Premier League. Then you have some of the highlights of Andy Cole's goals. The Spurs
Yeah, 99.
volley over 99 to win the league for United. The Barcelona goal that same season with Dwight York, 1-2 with York and Cole all the way down. Juventus, in the semi-final when he taps it in, full steam ahead Barcelona, iconic Clive Tilsley commentary, which was to help you understand this a bit more. Then he was a great man for a scissor volley, not quite a bicycle kick, not quite a volley. He scored 2 very similar goals against Leicester and Charlton at Old Trafford. There's the chip at home to Everton, great man for a chip, lovely technique on his little dinks. And then a great finish at Highbury, which is actually an often forgotten goal from the 1996-97 season. Went around Lukic, the goalkeeper. Very tight angle, bit like the Mark Hughes goal against Barcelona in the Cup Winners' Cup 1991 final. Very tight angle, daisy cut finish into the far corner. Point is, Andy Cole, one of the greatest Premier League strikers ever, let alone Manchester United forwards, and very underrated.
We're only picking what he did for United, though, of course.
Well, that's why I think he should be top 10, and he just makes it into the list. The rest... Would
Dwight York not make it ahead of him?
I was really close to picking York. Very, very
Cole's
close.
ahead of York.
Like York's best season was better than anything.
York had scored 1 more goal than Cole in the treble-winning season, and the reason I went for Cole...
He also had the same number of assists as Beckham that season.
And the reason I went for Cole is he did it over a longer stretch and scored more spectacular goals and more memories for me. So that's why I had Andy Cole there.
Some of these comments are driving me fucking insane.
I'm not sure they were more spectacular.
I would say more spectacular. So some of the goals that Cole scored.
Ronaldo number 1.
York scored very simple, brilliant striker goals, but Cole had an array of amazing finishes. And the other thing to say about Andy Cole,
I said the other way around.
One of the greatest Premier League scorers, and never took a penalty.
Yeah, loved to go from play.
Imagine he took penalties.
But he was number 10 in your list.
He's number 10, but I like a lot of our list crosses over. But I just wanted to highlight Cole because he wasn't in yours.
He wasn't in mine, no.
And then look, the Cantona thing. When I heard you last week, it was like there's no doubt that Cantona was absolutely.
Where did you have Cantona?
United 4.
Yeah, I had 5. Yeah.
4, and I think he never did it in Europe. That's true, but United weren't doing it in Europe at that time as well. It wasn't just Cantona.
You've both totally broken the rules of this, which was greatest Man United players of all time. Was the whole point.
He was in my list. He was in my top 10.
It wasn't Premier League though. That's just like
also Cantona would make top 10 of all time for his impact in the club.
The only additions are best Law Charlton, so he would have made me in Colm's list anyway.
Easily would have made
top
it.
10.
He joined the club 1992.
Paul McGrath's not making your list.
Well, Brian Robson would have made the list.
Brian Robson, Paul McGrath
sneaking in.
93, 94,
your grandfather
96,
and his bullshit
97.
in.
I don't know if McGrath makes the United top 10. He makes the
man of the match in an FA Cup final.
Yeah, but he makes the
when they weren't winning anything.
Ireland top 10 of all time. But the United defence is jam packed.
I think he was better than Nemanja Vidic.
No, yeah, I don't disagree. But
Nemanja Vidic comes into a team that's already winning leagues.
Vidic, Ferdinand,
you stick Paul McGrath in a team that's already winning leagues, and he's World Footballer of the Year.
Yeah. But then Stan was on the treble team. You got to put these things into context. Paul McGrath was a genius, but he couldn't get into this 11 because it's the Premier League 11.
Also, where did you have Rooney?
I had Rooney number 4.
Yeah, you see, again, quite slightly underrated. The club's greatest scorer.
Where did you have him?
3.
Yeah, but I think as long as he's in the top 5, people are going mad in the comments that he wasn't higher. But sorry, some of the people giving out about Paul Scholes,
Did Cristiano, was he there for long enough? Did he do enough?
Yeah, I think the reason I have him number 1 is he was basically 2 players in one spell, and that first spell, 6 years. So from 2003 to 2006, if Alex Ferguson was an impatient manager, Ronaldo could easily have been shown a door, because from 04 to 06 he was basically a frustrating, tricky winger who Ruud van Nistelrooy famously got very impatient with. And then the 2006 World Cup happened, and that wink between Portugal and England, when Rooney got sent off and Ronaldo winks to the bench, Alex Ferguson gets the two together. When they come back after the World Cup, we're going to resolve this. And the first game of the following season, they beat Fulham 5-0 at Old Trafford, and they combined for one of the greatest goals United scored that season. Ran the length of the pitch, the two of them, but 1-2s. And from 2006 to 2009, his second half of his first spell, he was a goal machine. So he was 2 players. Started off with this very, very tricky winger that we had never seen the likes of before, really. I mean, like the Sporting Lisbon friendly is the iconic match that all the players afterwards like, we got to sign this kid, he's amazing. Ferguson, don't worry, I'm on it. Then his debut comes on against Bolton. We heard the story of Cristiano Fitzgerald that inspired that name. And then he was very, very inconsistent for 3 years. But it was all worth the wait, because Ferguson knew this guy was going to be world class. And from 06 to 09, he was so brilliant for that 3-year spell. That's why he's number 1 on the list for me. And then obviously his second spell as well, he scored 24 goals last season, which is easily forgotten considering what he tarnished his whole legacy this season.
All right.
But still for me, the best United player of the Premier League era, because he was insane.
Very quickly, some comments to wrap this bit up. Did you see LeBron stop the game for a ceremony when he broke the record? Such an ick, says Flying Hellfish 99. Spectre Corp goes, nah, it was class. Neither of us will live to see someone break the record again.
in snooker, Ronnie O'Sullivan broke the 1,000 centuries in a deciding frame. They had a lovely moment where Ronnie, quick thumbs up to the crowd, a little smile, and a banner came up across, but they continued the frame. They didn't stop everything.
Said deciding frame.
It was a deciding frame, but they continued.
Well, he obviously has won.
He potted the rest of the balls.
He obviously has won because he's got a century in the frame.
Yeah,
no one else going to. You can't come back from century.
But he didn't stop after potting the ball to make 100 points.
Well, I mean,
continued.
You could say that that is one of the reasons why snooker's popularity has completely. Because people like a little bit of razzmatazz and love. Mr. Darts.
The greatest darts leg in history that happened at the World Championship there recently in Ali Pali.
In the World Championship final.
They went straight into the next
World Championship final.
Yeah, straight into the next
So LeBron's not stopping if this is in like game 7.
Is he not?
I don't think it's
I think he is.
7.
I think he's stopping for twice the length of that period.
I think if it's in game 7,
he's definitely stopping in game 7.
Absolutely not.
He definitely is.
They're not. The whole point was it didn't matter.
I don't know.
JP Wright, voice actor, says Shane needs a bit of work on the American accent.
Well, he's a voice actor. So.
You can give him a bit of coaching there, JP. I feel that. And then the last one for now. Morning, Shane. Could you give a shout out to the Lonely Darts Club playing in the 2nd Division Luxembourg Dart League? Still looking for the first win of the year. Clear eyes, full pints, can't win.
Shout out. I'm sorry, Lonely Darts Club. For that name for a darts club, I think that's the greatest name I've ever heard. So well done, Cian. Yeah, a shout out to the Lonely Darts Club in the 2nd Division in Luxembourg. Incredible. Sorry, that's brightened my morning because a lot of the comments here are giving Paul Scholes an awful feckin' time of it.
Yeah, and let them have it.
Put some respect on his name.
No, we'll wait for it.
Paul Scholes is the greatest midfielder in Premier League history. I won't be taking any questions on that.
Right, lads, well done. You came here, you ruined the show. It's 8:01. What more can we say? The people have spoken. If you want to get in touch this morning, 0879 180 180, that's the WhatsApp number, or you can leave a comment in the YouTube stream. Alternatively, you can get us at Off the Ball AM. I think Tommy Rooney is with us. Tommy, good morning to you. Unmute yourself there, good man.
Good morning. Yeah, I muted myself just in case I reacted to the lads' list there, but we won't get into that.
No, very quickly.
You can't have Paul Scholes over Roy Keane.
I know, Tommy. I thought you'd be a Scholes.
This is an excellent start to this week's episode of the Power Rankings. Well done.
There we go. And you can't have a list of Manchester United's greatest ever players without having George Best, Bobby Charlton, and
exactly.
Dennis Hall. There's the copyright. I wouldn't go near that Premier League era.
It's a very modern thing to suggest that history doesn't exist because we didn't see it with our own eyes, and it is leading to all sorts of problems around the world.
Where's Duncan Edwards going? What's your footballing?
Do a bit of research. I don't know where he's going.
Research what? Just watch a couple of old grainy videos.
Read books. Read books. Oh my God!
I do read books, but that doesn't teach me how good Duncan Edwards was in comparison to feckin' Paul Scholes.
Absolutely does. Yeah, you kind of. What could he do? Where did he go? Where could he play in the pitch? What was the field of influence? What did the manager at the time say about him? How did they compare him with the previous greats? And what was his...
But they can't compare him to Scholes.
What were his achievements?
We don't know.
Yeah, without trying to undermine my power rankings here, watching I Believe in Miracles made John Robertson one of my favourite footballers of all time. So that's what can happen, Shane, when you watch a bit of old footage.
Jesus, there
you go.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. Okay.
Now, it is time for our GAA power rankings.
Yeah.
Some of these critics, these pundits,
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
We're going to have a news thing next week where we talk about mushrooms, but we might leave that until we actually got it done. Are you on the mushies this week, Tommy?
I absolutely am not, and I've never been accused of that before. But that's what happens when the power rankings are put into your hands. It's been a busy few weeks, Ger, without you. I was surprised you weren't there the first day around to give me a bit of grief, but my God, I have taken it since.
How prepared or otherwise were you for the onslaught in your DMs and publicly?
I was prepared. I did the work. I didn't take any decision lightly. I think I've been proven right in a lot of regards so far with a lot of my early calls. And I vociferously defended myself on every single social media platform that I possibly could over the last couple of weeks.
Well,
so I turned off my phone for a week there. So yeah, that's where we are.
Tell me, I obviously missed last week, or the first time that you did this. Have you adapted, changed and evolved the criteria from Owen Sheehan, where it was just like his internal computer that was deciding what the order was?
A little bit. There's still an element of that, which I think some people find it very difficult to get their heads around. There's a couple of new websites at the minute that are doing their own power rankings. I think Stats and Sports is a GA site that I had a look at. We have vastly different criteria, I'll put it that way. There is, obviously a bit of science, a bit of statistics, but who was it that said statistics can't judge character? So character comes into this too. So the character of the team obviously plays a factor. Owen never really let us see how the Fig was put into the Fig role, and I don't think I'll be doing the same either, but I will be defending all of my choices.
All right. Let's get
I ran
going.
out of time the last day, so will I just go
Yeah,
quickly
let's get
through?
going. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll talk through the movers, and you can give out if there's no one that isn't moving that you're giving out about. Movers from 32 to 25. Longford have slipped down again. 0 from 2, bottom of Division 3, hammered by the neighbours Westmeath in the Midlands El Clasico at the weekend. They have the worst score difference in the 4 divisions. I do think Paddy Christie will eventually get a kick out of them. Not at the minute. So they're down to 27th. Laois have jumped up on them. 2 from 2. Finally a bit of momentum for Laois. Low enough at the moment in the rankings to begin with, but that's because at the weekend they had their first win since February 2020. So it's been a very long slide. The first win at home since February 2020. Been a very long slide, but they're on the right road at the minute. And then on to the next round of rankings. For anyone listening, should I give a recap where we're at?
Yeah, so
Waterford, Wicklow,
so 32
Wexford.
Waterford, 31 Wicklow, 30 Wexford, 29 Carlow, 28 London, 27 Longford, down 1, 26 Laois, up 1. Leitrim unchanged at 25. Were you tempted to? They're doing well.
They're doing well. They're the top scorers in the division. I got accused of football pod bias for having Andy Moore inside there, but I gave my reasons last week for having them so high. There was a real bounce in Leitrim football last year, and Sligo are just ahead of them in 24th. So moving on to the next tier, Sligo 24th, Antrim 23rd, Fermanagh 22nd. Big movers here. Tipperary have slid down 2 places, 0 from 2, joint bottom of Division 3. They already lost Colin O'Riordan, who trained early in the year but didn't commit. Michael Quinlivan isn't around, and now they've lost their talisman, Conor Sweeney, to the dreaded cruciate injury. I fear they're about to make a swift return to Division 4.
It's last season.
They're in a bit of bother.
Yeah, it has all the hallmarks of last season for them, unfortunately. Go on.
Yeah, 20th, Offaly. I doubted Liam Kearns. I said not every team can get a manager bounce. Liam Kearns certainly has. They are 2 from 2. I didn't think they pushed on this year, but they're in a great position. The weekend, it was 1-1 apiece with Fermanagh at half-time, but it got a bit better in the second half, and Offaly edged that one 1-9 to 1-8.
Yeah, Fermanagh and Antrim have had tricky starts. So we're going to talk about Down now, right?
Yeah.
Antrim nearly beat Down, but then didn't.
For sure. Yeah, and
so it's hard to tell. That could be great for Antrim because Down could be getting a bounce, and they just need to see it through in week 3 and make sure they get a win.
Yeah, 100%.
They're on the precipice of they're in a bit of flux at the moment. With Down, they're only going up 1, even though they won two games.
Yeah, and I found it difficult, and we'll come to it in a minute. I found it difficult to move counties up 2, but in some places you just had to. Like, you couldn't slip Tip beneath Offaly after losing 2 games and Offaly winning 1. So Tip had to jump down 2. Down, while I feel they're starting from a very, very low base, the music is good. Laverty knows what he's doing. It might be early, but he knows what he's doing, and he will do really well as an inter-county manager. Oral Murdoch was picked out in the GA Team of the Week this week. He's getting rave reviews. Keep an eye out for him, a young midfielder rocking it at the moment in Down. Pat Havern is flying up front with Barry O'Hagan. So they've won 2 different ways. They had a good win out the first day, and they mixed it up the other night. They were blessed, really, by all accounts, against Antrim. So you can't complain when that's happening early on in the season. So they're getting wins. Down can't complain. They're going to be happy with where they are. Louder 18th. I did feel like putting them over Limerick, but we're going to leave a couple of weeks to see how that gets on. Limerick are 17th. A couple of Limerick people aren't happy, but despite their run to the Munster final, I do think that they're going to be relegated back to Division 3.
Right. Here's where it starts to get interesting.
Yeah. Okay. 16th position, Cavan. Cavan people will complain, but they always do.
2 wins,
for the moment.
Yeah,
for sure, Shane. But there's a fine line between moving up the rankings when you're switching between divisions and stuff like that. League football can have a bearing, but it can be difficult to move ahead of a Division 2 side. Kildare 15th. I really thought long and hard about this, Ger. I actually thought I had them low enough in 13th, to be honest, and I thought that was going to cause a bit of consternation when we had the rankings originally.
Well, this is where you got accused of being on mushrooms for putting Kildare in 13th.
Yeah,
what's going to be on? Put them 15th.
Kildare GA podcast. But I just look at the defeat against Dublin. Grand. It's in Croke Park. couple of nice showings. Kevin Feely came back onto the pitch after his recovery from injury. Daniel Flynn, nowhere to be seen, had a bit of a knock. Was back last week off the bench. But they went 27 minutes at home without scoring against Cork.
Not great.
That is just like I was in Newbridge last year to watch them beat Dublin. And this is my problem with Kildare. They have it in them. They have the ability. They have the footballers. But there's something missing on a fundamental level. And I don't know what it is. The other thing I'm surprised about was the mood music. And I know you can see this in most counties. If a defeat goes against them, they're complaining. There's arguments on social media. But there was a grave response from Kildare channels at the weekend in terms of how bad that first half really was. Second half didn't get much better. Cork are good. Like I'm not saying Meath were lucky to beat them, but that game hinged on a couple of moments around the 50th minute. Cork easily could have won that game. But Cork are not the finished article. Most of the teams in Division 2 have weaknesses to go with their strengths. Kildare's seems to be a fatal one, and it seems to just be an element of flakiness that they just can't shake over the last couple of years. Grand, they've got the Leinster finals, but they never really put a paw on Dublin. it's a sad state of affairs. I do hope that they get higher than they are because they're far better than they're showing. But what is going on?
I don't know. I think that last year's Leinster final defeat has had more of an impact than the quality of the good performance they put in against Mayo. Like, if they'd got over Mayo that day, I think it would have been a transformative moment for the team, a real recovery from what happened, and for them to have lost in the manner that they did, there seems to be some kind of hangover from that. Now, I know they're working on that. So, and again, it is only the early stages of the league. However, Division 2 of the league is vitally important. So
it's a bear pit.
It's on a bit of a knife edge at the moment. I do think though that there's just a problem here with the position of Westmeath. Like,
okay, well, you can say that.
You're putting them in the top 12 because they're guaranteed to be in the Tailteann Cup, or not to be in the Sam Maguire. Is that it?
There isn't one full reason why I've put Westmeath in 12th position, and they may not stay in 12th position. I truly believe the manner in which they took the Tailteann Cup so seriously, the benefits they got from it, the team holiday they got, they were all in Cancun together in November. They have a new manager bounced that into that with Desi Dolan and Ger Shane.
How'd that work out their first day?
Sure. Okay, and this is the league, and it's early, and it's January, right?
But
look at the response they put in.
They weren't particularly bouncy.
I think they're the second highest goal scorers in the league now. The response they put in against Longford, and Longford won the O'Byrne Cup. Don't forget that. Longford had an okay start of the year. They were in good shape. They were moving well.
So Cork and Meath need to be above Westmeath, Tommy.
Look at Shane. It's a long year. It's a sprint this year, not a marathon. So there'll be a lot of changes to the power rankings.
You're being cute here as a Meath man. You're being cute here, putting Westmeath above Meath. Like there's something going on here.
Meath have had the largest move this week of any county. Meath are up 2 places.
I wouldn't have taken it off you if you put them up 3 though and dumped them ahead of Westmeath.
But if you're watching the Meath games closely, you'll see that there are very obvious weaknesses, and it's great. The mood music's really good. The chest is out. They're the highest goal scorers in the division, but Meath are not the finished article. They're missing a couple players from injury now. And, a couple of Sigerson issues, as you've seen. Conor O'Rourke finding it difficult to get the balance between starting players who are captaining their sides in Sigerson and Meath players that are actually captaining teams at that level. They are key players for him, but he's lost a couple of players now. They're playing a new style. He can't ask for much more as a Meath fan, but they are not the finished article yet.
Okay, I do think that the Westmeath positioning is like a fundamental error here.
You don't think that the Tailteann Cup deserves bonus points?
But that's last year, they
won a trophy, championship. They won a league title the year before that.
Yeah.
They have trophies in this dressing room. They have winners in this dressing room. I think they are arguably the second best team in Leinster.
Well, I'd love to have seen them win their first league game and their second game, and it be like, okay, so we beat Longford, but as you said, you expect Longford to get relegated. So beating the relegation fodder is not actually an indicator of good quality form. At the moment, Cavan, Offaly and Down are 2 from 2, and Westmeath are 1 from 2, having played, as we said, Longford in Division 3. And there are Division 2 teams behind them who we think are going to end up topping Division 2. What's your prediction for who's going to top Division 2? I think privately you think Meath are going to do it. I'm breaching confidence here. But
Division 2.
Yeah.
I asked Division 3 for a second. Who do I think is top in Division 2? Dublin. Dublin are walking away from Division 2, and Derry are getting promoted. Yeah. That's what's happening in Division 2 this year.
Meath aren't getting promoted?
Meath aren't ready to be a Division 1 side yet. The hope is that they back up what they've shown this year. They put in good performances in every game. They may not win every game, but good, solid performances in every game. They continue to show this flair up front because they're starting 6 forwards, which I absolutely love. But I don't think they're going to get promoted. I haven't seen enough yet to say that they will. I haven't seen enough yet to say that they are a solid Division 1 team. Like, what you want to happen with Meath is that they're good enough to go up and they're good enough to stay there, which Roscommon look like they may get away with this year.
Yeah, which obviously has been a real problem for teams getting promoted a season too early. And the relegation from Division 1 seems to be psychological disaster. It's like, we're seeing...
Westmeath had it a couple of years ago. They were soundly beaten in every game, 8 games. Meath had it 2 years ago. They were beaten, but I thought they were very competitive, which I thought helped them. But, they didn't get the bounce the next year. Kildare bet them in that playoff. So it just shows you, just need to put in the foundations to get there.
Yeah, and it's the same even with Kildare, who were chronically unlucky last year in Division 1, but are not seeing the benefit of having played at that higher level just at the moment. Now,
exactly.
This can turn around really quickly. There's a down week this week. This is the week where you get everybody together and you say, what the hell? What do we stand for? What are our values? Let's go. And sometimes that'll work and sometimes it won't. So a lot of these teams in between 16 and 9. So you've got...
There's a lot of movement.
Yeah, so you've Westmeath at 12, Clare at 11. I think maybe...
Clare 11, but Clare are perennial All-Ireland quarter-finalists here. They're in Division 2 constantly over the last couple of years. A lot of people complained about this, but there's a lot to be said for that.
I think there's
and they're staying there again this year, Jerry.
One of my favourite lines from Die Hard is where they're talking about the Helsinki syndrome, as in Helsinki, Sweden. I just, for whatever reason, I found it like... If I could get an NFT of that, I would be like, that's the one piece that I would ever pay for. You definitely have Stockholm syndrome, or, more accurately, Burn syndrome or something. You've gone native. The air down there is poisoning your brain to the point where they're the 11th best team in the country.
Jeff, I had a piece in the programme in Navan at the weekend. I was asked to write a piece about the rivalry between Clare and Meath. And I happened to not sit in defence. I called a Meath win. I did say that I thought it'd be very close, and that the noise in Meath and the noise in Navan would get them over the line.
I believe they call that riding with the hare and hunting with the hound.
Yeah.
Running with the hare and hunting with the hound.
So look at
what a butcher.
They are punching above their weight, but it is a very good Clare team. I've watched them closely over the last couple of years, and they have some.
He's not going to pick you, Tommy. He's not going to pick you. It's too late.
Give up.
Look I'm long beyond that. Ger, I've long given up on that dream. So if only Colm could come in a bit earlier in Meath, but that's another story for another day. The next 2 games in Division 2 are going to tell tale. I presume there's producers in your ear screaming to hurry up, but Kildare are in Ennis to play Clare. If Kildare is 0 from 3, it's Tailteann Cup for Glen Ryan this year. Meath are in Owen Beg against Derry, and if Meath don't put in a good performance, we could be questioning everything we've seen in the first 2 weeks.
Okay, so we'll
Donegal are 9th. Monaghan, we're going to leave them in 10th. I feel like they're going to stay there for the year. I hope that they can move on from this. I do think there's a slide in Monaghan, but they're going to have to find some talent. Not find some talent, because there is good younger players there like Sean Jones and some of the younger defenders breaking through, but they're going to need to solidify themselves as Division 1 footballers very quickly, because they're sliding into Division 2 and they're going to hopefully not stay there, but Monaghan are there at the moment. They're 10th. I don't think they're moving. Donegal has slipped back to 9th. Yes, they've beaten the All-Ireland champions Kerry at home in the rain when Kerry had a shadow team out. Just about got over the line, but I think we got a better idea of what Donegal are about against Tyrone. It was a fairly
that was a freak. I honestly think that Donegal win over Kerry in the first game was a freak. Like, I actually agree with you, Tommy. I think Donegal and Monaghan will probably get relegated from Division 1.
You'd be worried, alright, if you're a Donegal supporter, just that there was an immediate kick, but that might be unsustainable, particularly when there's so many young players who are now understanding exactly what Division 1 football is about.
Yeah. And like Paddy Carr has a reputation for bringing young players along and getting them into the right zone. So he will do good work there. And Donegal on paper are, as we always say, Donegal on paper are an exceptional side. They have so many good footballers across the board. But there has just been something wrong in that side over the last couple of years, the way they've fallen short time and time again. So they're in 9th, and I don't see them breaking back into the top 8 again this year.
The big difference there for me is, Donegal and Monaghan and Roscommon actually have new managers, but Roscommon have held on to some of that core group of experienced players, whereas Monaghan, they've lost Drew Wiley and Colin Walsh to retirement. McManus and the two Hugheses haven't been playing yet in the league. They're going to come back in soon. Jack McCarran's been injured. Davy Garland's playing Sigerson with TCU and banging in goals, so they're missing a few players. And similarly for Donegal, if you lose Michael Murphy, that's tough. But Roscommon have gone the other way with the new manager. They've kept on some of those experienced players, so I think Roscommon are heading the other direction.
Yeah. That's probably a very fair point, Shane. And for most of those teams between 16 and 9, if they lose players to Sigerson, to injuries, to retirement, you're snookered, because the player pick, the depth, just isn't there at the moment.
Okay.
We'll move on to top 8.
Top 8, Roscommon.
Okay.
Cracking the top 8 this week. Number 8.
The Rossies, top of the league. Are they finally about to end their yo-yo hoodoo? Jeez, I couldn't say it there. The baggies of the last couple of years, the West Brom of the last couple of years, as Paddy Andrews christened them, too much arguments from Roscommon people. But the manner of the victories have been impressive in the fact that they've been very similar. I don't know whether it's the hallmarks of that the change might be coming, the fact that they're falling behind and their bench is coming on and making the difference, but they had a really resounding win against Tyrone in the last 15 minutes to come back from a couple of points down, and against Galway, All-Ireland runners up, the team that I have in third place, they bet them 9-8 the weekend with a cracking winner from Richard Hughes, breaking up the field in the last minute when Galway were on the attack. Plenty to work on in the county. There is a new generation, I think, on the way through in Roscommon. You're seeing it in their midfield and in some of their attackers. They got, great value out of the players over the last decade, but some of them need to break through and probably force, some of them onto the bench. So they could have a strong bench this year, Roscommon, with a new wave of players breaking through.
We have Conor McKenna on the show a little bit later on. You've got Tyrone at
Brilliant.
7. If McKenna was still at Tyrone, you might have them a little bit higher. But I do think that traditionally, Tyrone have fallen flat the year after they've won All Irelands. I mean, they can't really. It's a fluke, right? But I very gratified as someone who thought that there was more in that Tyrone team than a fluky All Ireland win. Definitely felt like there's a squad there and depth there that many other counties don't have. There's also a very clear identity and everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Something weird happened last year with all the retirements that completely stripped the depth, but then they have that replenished this year with one of the best under-20s teams that we've seen in a long time. Probably too early for a lot of them, but not too early for some of them. And maybe
I hope it's not too early for Rory Canavan. We're getting really close to seeing a really vibrant Tyrone attack with the two Canavans in there. Like, that is going to be, a sight worth paying in to watch, and I can't wait to see that. I think you're right. I think Tyrone. I'm being harsh on Tyrone. I love Tyrone football. They were my favourite team of the 2000s. They're phenomenal with a chip on the shoulder, so maybe I've given them that chip on the shoulder. I'm only joking. It's not going to be under the dressing room wall this year. But James O'Donoghue called them to be relegated. Well, he said that they were in danger of relegation early last year. That didn't happen, but the problems they had, it permeated, and that hangover, I think, is still there a little bit. You saw the way they lost to Roscommon. Good win at the weekend. I think Tyrone will push on this year. Once again, I actually think every team from 7-1 are contenders this year. I think this is an open All-Ireland. I thought last year was too. Kerry, I'm going to say it, we're lucky to get over the line. Dublin could have easily won that All-Ireland again last year. But equally, if Armagh had gotten to the All-Ireland final, if Derry had gotten to the All-Ireland, I don't think Derry had enough really, but it could have been anyone's in that All-Ireland final. Galway pushed Kerry all the way. So I think anyone from 7-1 can win the All-Ireland. I'm putting that in the record.
Derry in Division 2 this year are having the opportunity to play teams that they're superior to and getting a bit of confidence going and trying to find a bit of attacking flair. That's the one thing that gives me some hope that we're going to see a development from last year. But there's also the possibility that last year was the best that we're ever going to get from Derry, that they are All-Ireland semi-finalists, but that they don't quite have the forward firepower to see them through in big games like that. Now, perhaps that's wrong. The textbook Rory and Jim McGuinness in Donegal was reach a semi-final, show everybody what the heady heights are like, and then the next year come and piratically take over, be the Pirates.
Yeah, Jim and Rory had McFadden, Murphy, McBurty though, and I'm not saying McGuigan, Toner and Heron can't live up to a really high level, but I think Shane McGuigan's their marquee forward. They need Lachlan Murray to really break through this year and show how good he can be. He had a couple of moments in the McKenna Cup. He's very highly rated in Derry. They need a couple of more of the Glen players probably to bring their flair, but Glen didn't really have shooters across the board. They had goal scorers. They had lads with an eye for goals. So Derry definitely needs something else. We need to see an evolution, Ger. I totally agree with you. I'm not convinced that they have it in them what Donegal had from 11 to 12, but maybe they don't need that. Maybe they have something else.
I'm not sure, but I'd have them behind Tyrone now, and I'd have Tyrone ahead of Armagh now as well.
I think Derry are going to.
Would you have Tyrone ahead of Armagh?
Yeah, I just.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, Tyrone won All Ireland.
Armagh
were quite impressive.
Last year was so bad. Armagh are going to push the league all the way this year. Like, what if Armagh win Division 1 of the league this year?
Well, then you're okay, fair enough. Then I'd have them third.
It's going to be
they have to do that. Let's wait and see.
It's set up for a Derry Armagh Ulster final this year because you've got Fermanagh against Derry in the quarterfinal. The winner will play the winner of Tyrone Monaghan, and I think Derry will beat probably Tyrone. I'm going with Tyrone in that one.
That's a good call, Shane.
Early with Derry.
Well, I think Derry will beat Tyrone in an Ulster semi-final, and I think it'll be Donegal or Down against Cavan, Armagh or Antrim. So it's going to be probably a Donegal Armagh semi-final on the other side. No disrespect.
I've already called.
So I think it could well be a Derry Armagh Ulster final this year. The Ulster's hard to defend, but if any team can do it, I think Derry can do it.
It's an Armagh Tyrone final. Back to the future.
It could be,
yeah,
but
I think there's a good chance of that, Shane. Yeah, and
they move it to Croker.
Defended, yeah, that'd be some turn up.
Oh lads, no, Derry are there on merit. Like they beat Tyrone by 12 points in the McKenna Cup final not too long ago, and it wasn't shadowboxing.
Doesn't matter. McKenna Cup.
They weren't They were strong teams.
The weather's shite.
Yeah, but
different sport.
They had no Glen players either. I mean,
pre-season's not getting the thumbs up for me. Yeah, look I think Armagh Fort is obviously contentious, but I do think that they were the fourth best team in the country last year. Despite only getting to the All-Ireland quarter-final, I thought they were the fourth best team in the country, and that's why they're fourth.
Ahead of Galway, ahead of Derry.
No, Galway, ahead of Derry. Okay, because I don't think Derry laid enough of a glove on Galway.
Mayo with I know the lads on the football pod this week are like, it's the lease of life for Aidan O'Shea, and that's not a bad full forward line that they have if they have O'Shea and Killian and another whoever it is, Ryan O'Donoghue or whoever. They can actually move players around.
Ryan could be 11 this year. You could kind of see that happen, maybe even Ryan O'D coming out the top of the D. But I really been heartened by Kieran O'Connor's comeback, lads, because coming back from injury, the injuries that he's had at the age that he is and the amount of miles on the clock, he looks fresh as a daisy. And he's been used well and he's coming back. I think there's good signs for Mayo. And I actually think the manner in which they drew the first game against Galway and the manner in which they drew the second game against Armagh, they're great conversations for Kevin McStay and his management team to be having early in the year.
He's so enthusiastic post-match about everything as well that it's actually it has to be rubbing off. And then the last one I just want to talk to you about is Donald Down O'Sullivan wasn't getting quite the thumbs up from Milesy on the show yesterday.
I heard that.
But the level of excitement in Kerry is real.
Yeah, they legit believe it. We're in a WhatsApp group with a Kerry man who must not be named. He's excited. James O'Donoghue, who's played alongside Donald Down O'Sullivan, and he kind of gave us the insider view on him and what they're feeling about him on the football pod this week. But he has, as I said on the pod this week, he's the cut of a county footballer. He actually looks like he's ready to play county football, and that's a very difficult thing to do given the level of conditioning that's in the game at the minute. He looks like he's ready to go, ready to rock, and I actually really believe Jack O'Connor needs to innovate as much as Derry need to evolve. Kerry need to evolve this year because they were lucky to get over the line last year.
But they get the bounce of being All-Ireland champions and the nous of knowing how to manage games. It's like the Dubs were pretty lucky a couple of times to get over Mayo, but then once they get into that habit, as the progression happened, they became much better at it. And that's why I have Kerry miles ahead of everybody. I don't think it's that open. I think it's Kerry's to lose.
Okay.
And I think the discovery of two inside forwards, you're like, oh my God.
I know.
And the production line of those under-20s, that is starting to roll through. So
yeah, everywhere. But they need a couple of positions. They need a midfielder, and I think they need another half-back maybe. But there we go.
All right.
I look forward to arguing again in a couple of weeks and maybe having a bit more of data to work with, a couple more games, a bit more evidence.
You're doing well, Tommy.
Not bad.
Thanks, lads.
Thank you very much.
Now, talk soon. Bye-bye.
That's this week's Power Rankings with Tommy Rooney.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
We mentioned it there, the Football Pod in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Check out the hashtag The Toughest for more. In the break here, you're going to hear Tommy, James and Paddy talking about McStay swearing by Aidan O'Shea full forward, and as I said, the new lease of life that he's getting.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Koigig Pod on OTB Sports.
There's no way Arsenal would let her go. It's all kind of mind games going on, which is a lot of fun.
Picked up more attention than any other actual transfer.
For me, the players like Karen and the younger players who had more years in their career were far braver. I'd planned to stay another year and then finish. So it was easier for me. Like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it. And I have to make it easier for the people coming behind me.
Keep up to date with all the WSL action every Tuesday and subscribe to the feed in the OTB Sports app now.
There's not that many scores in Aidan. Everyone knows it. Like, he's not going to score that much. So he has to be winning it out in front, top of the D, and you have to get those runners off to slip it. But if the ball is in front of him, he's going to win it. His hands are unbelievable. He's massively strong. how many fullbacks in the country would actually like to mark him? No, probably Sean Kelly from Galway is the only one physically who'd actually match up with him. The Kerry defence wouldn't be that physically strong. I'm thinking anyone in Dublin, they probably wouldn't want to get their hands on him. So I agree. I think that is the spot.
In there. If the ball going in is good, chances are he's going to win it.
Yeah.
The issue then is can they get guys off? And Cillian O'Connor gets more minutes today. Right, O'Donoghue looks back and he's sharp after the kind of nightmare season he had. Okay, do you want to get Tommy Conroy back in there as well? But to be fair to McStay, he is definitive in that, which is good. And I think that's been probably an issue for Aidan O'Shea, that he's kind of fallen between two stools. He's playing centre forward one week, he's midfield the next week, he's inside for 5 minutes. It's never really clear really what Mayo wanted to get from him. And then the supporters kind of get on his back because they're thinking, well, if he's full forward, he should be scoring 5 or 6 points. Like Jimmy, you said, that's not his game. Whereas McStay seems to come in and he's like, this is your role. And that clarity as a player, even for someone who's been around as long as Aidan O'Shea, that can give you a lease of life.
Yeah.
You're not being asked to do 20 different things. We want you in here and we're going to play off you. I'd say Aidan O'Shea gets energy from that as well. And you could see it today. I thought it was a really good performance by me. He kicks a couple of scores himself, which is a plus as well. But the good things that Mayo were doing, particularly in that third quarter, he was involved in it.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, it's bang on 8:30. Loads of comments coming through about the completely incorrect teams that are top tens that Shane and Colm had a little bit earlier. We'll park those for now. We're going to talk about Liverpool, and I'm delighted to say Gareth Roberts is with us to try and parse through the crisis, because it's a full-blown crisis at this stage. Gareth, we've talked before about this. Good morning to you. I'm sorry for your troubles again. We've talked before about it's a problem with the midfield, it's a Sadio Mane thing, it's a hangover from last season at a psychological level, at a fitness level. It's all of these things, obviously, but is there something else that we don't fully understand happening here? Is something else going on?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, it really feels like whatever theory you put forward about Liverpool at the moment, it's right. You can make a case for the defence being awful, the attack being awful, the midfield being awful. You can make a case for the owners' lack of investment in the first team in recent windows. You can make a case for the wrong buys being made even as well. So, there is an awful lot of talk about the owners and investment, but equally, was Cody Gakpo the right person to buy at this time when Liverpool are struggling in the way that they are in midfield in particular? What did he really add at this time? So there are an awful lot of questions, and to me, what's worrying is how much you can see it getting to the manager. Now, I'm not for a second trying to pile any pressure on Jurgen Klopp. There's enough on him already. What's worrying for me is that it's getting to him a little bit. You saw after the game at the weekend, of course, in the press conference, it's been well covered, that he turned on a journalist, James Pearce, and that seems to be mistaken identity, because there was no real reason to turn on James. But the very fact that he did that, you could see the emotions boiling over in him. You could see it during the game as well, when the camera goes to the bench and things like that. He's shaking his head's in his hands. He's not the usual Jurgen Klopp. So he looks like someone who, he's looking at everything in exactly how we are in this conversation and saying literally everything is going wrong at this time. I think some of the earlier performances in the season, and certainly sometimes against certain opposition, okay, you can say, yeah, I can kind of see it. But, going away to Wolves, losing in that fashion, particularly when you consider where Wolves are, what they've been doing, how much they've struggled to score goals. I think when things were happening against Brighton, at least you had it in your mind that, well, Brighton are on the up, Brighton are a good side. But when it's against a relegation struggler, then it really is time to worry. And it's hard to see any sort of, light at the end of the tunnel at the moment, to be honest. I mean, we'll go to Anfield on Monday, of course. It's Everton on Monday. But, there's a bit of trepidation there. There's got to be when you see Everton get the result that they do against Arsenal. They've got the new manager. They've got the new manager bounce. It is Sean Dyche, and you know what Everton are going to do. They're going to be physical. They're going to play the ball long. They're going to put balls into the box. They're going to try and cause problems that way. There's nothing there where you think for certain, well, at least we'll get this from Liverpool. because at the moment there's not a lot of high points about Liverpool. You know, probably one of the few is that an 18-year-old lad in Bajcetic is playing well in midfield. But, you know, when you look at the stars who aren't playing well, you know, even that is almost like a backhanded compliment. So to say, what is it? You know, I could probably sit here for half an hour and list the problems at Liverpool at the moment, but they've got to get themselves out of this collective funk. It's up to those players. And, you know, there's an awful lot of focus on Jurgen Klopp, and I've added to that, I suppose, with what I've said. But it's reaching a point now where this is on the players. The players have got to sort themselves out to an extent, because, you know, whatever the setup was, whatever the tactics were, the way they start against Wolves is awful. You know, it's basic mistakes. It's not closing down. It's not looking confident. It's not completing, you know, basic passes that, you know, you would expect someone at a decent level of football to complete, never mind a side that was getting 90-odd points last season and nearly won the lot. So, yeah, there's psychological, there's form, there's fitness, there's injuries, there's all the off-the-field stuff, which doesn't sound great as well. You've got people leaving. We're not sure who's replacing them. There's the whole uncertainty about the ownership as well. But in the meantime, you know, the players have got to do the job. There are matches to be played, matches to be won. And they know themselves that 10th place in the Premier League isn't acceptable for Liverpool. And there's a lot of people's, you know, Liverpool careers on the line here, and you'd expect to see a little bit more from them, to be honest. You know, there's a lot of contracts up. There's a lot of players who, you know, probably be looking at renewals and things like that as well. And at the moment, and we're seeing all the pieces in the media, of course we are. You know, we're seeing pieces about, could Liverpool have a huge clear out? Well, yeah. You know, quite frankly, they could, because based on the evidence of this season, there's not a lot of them, you know, that deserve a lot of praise on the performances they put in so far.
Can I just, not to labour the point too much, but just to go back to the press conference incident. So apparently it is a case of mistaken identity. What was the piece that he was annoyed about? It seems to have been to do with the power struggle behind the scenes over transfers. Is that the thing that has pissed him off? Is that generally agreed or believed to have been allegedly the thing that pissed him off?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, there's that aspect, and there's just that, you know, there's a piece, isn't there, where it was just sort of detailing that, you know, all isn't well behind the scenes as well, and that certain individuals on the staff are annoying other individuals on the staff, and people believe he's got more power than he has, and all this kind of stuff. I think that was the piece that was being allegedly being referenced. I mean, there's a piece from Henry Winter on Liverpool in the Times today, and he's talked about it being mistaken identity and referencing a piece which appears to be a piece that appeared on Sky Sports. So, I mean, on the one hand, you would say you would expect a manager to defend his staff. On the other, I'm just not sure that was the right time to raise an issue with a journalist, to be honest. I mean, it overtook, you know, everything else about, you know, it's the story, isn't it? It's what you're wanting to talk to me about now. Well, it's what all the fans have been talking about. You know, as soon as that happened, everyone's exchanging WhatsApp messages saying, what's that about? What's James Pearce done? And everyone's trawling through everything James Pearce has written for The Athletic.
It's the best career move that's ever happened for him, for sure. I do think that if you want to defend the staff, then you defend the staff. You don't say, I'm not going to talk to you, because, you know, like, there's a way of doing that would have been a rallying cry and powerful. It's a high wire act, but there's no high wire act in like refusing to answer questions from somebody because you're annoyed by them. And I think that just circles back to the point you made, where it just did appear like it had annoyed him to the level where he'd lost control. Now, famously, he's been pissed off at Roy Keane before, and post matches he's like, you know, but that's generally after a victory or a mad refereeing decision or something. But this was calculated to the point where it didn't look like it was a good strategic move. And sure, look, who knows what else. And I also feel like the power vacuum, when the owners have said that this club is for sale and they're looking for ownership, that has allowed, you know, I'm sure that it's just mildly distracting for Klopp and the change in transfer power structure, however that has ended up working, and the results have not been the spectacular success that they were for so long. Then all of a sudden it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, and that is how it looks. You know, everyone's looking at Brighton at the moment, aren't they, and saying, you know, how brilliantly run Brighton is, how well they've done in terms of getting players in that, you know, and all of a sudden those players' values are going through the roof and everyone else wants to buy them. You know, this is sort of the type of stuff that Liverpool would do. And Liverpool with a well-run club, Liverpool with a club where, you know, a team like they had some kind of secret around transfers. Obviously, Michael Edwards has left. Julian Ward then meant to be stepping into the vacuum. You know, it did come as a shock to me and probably everyone else who supports Liverpool that he's then going, and there are other people behind the scenes going. We don't know who the next sporting director is going to be. There's the vacuum in terms of power as well, like you say, in terms of the owners. Mike Gordon has obviously stepped away from the running of the club to concentrate on the selling of the club. And it just does seem that it's an absolute mess at the moment from top to bottom, and you're seeing that in results. But like I say, I mean, for all the noise that there is around those various things, it's got to come back to the players at some point. And we're just seeing performances from the collective now where it's unrecognisable. You know, players that you would expect to run through walls for Liverpool aren't at times. And, you know, some of the... You know, a player that I admire and love and like watching, because, you know, look, I think as a football fan, the basics are always some of the stuff that Sean Dyche mentioned, funnily enough. You expect your players to run through walls, you expect your players to put effort in, and you expect your players to do the basics, and then you expect the quality to shine from there on in, and for them to show why they're playing in the Premier League. Now, for me, you're seeing someone like Andy Robertson, who's been brilliant for Liverpool, loved the player, not closing down and things like that, and you're like, well, where's that mentality coming from? Why is that happening? Why is he switching off for those split seconds? What is that? Is he just drained? Is he just mentally and physically drained? You know, it got referenced in the same press conference, you know, is this a hangover from last season? And Jurgen said himself that he's almost tired of that excuse, and I think most of us are, but it does seem to have taken something out of them. You know, the number of games, I guess, when you're at this stage of the season doesn't really, you know, wash too much, particularly as Jurgen said, we had a week, you know, to prepare for Wolves, and that was the performance we put in. But I just wonder whether there's something mentally. I'm no expert on that, but I just think, you know, is there something in coming so close to being regarded as almost the best ever? Like if Liverpool had done the clean sweep last season, you know, imagine how much all of those players would be lauded. And then to come so close and then end up so far from that, you know, has faith been lost there? Is there something mentally wrong with them as a collective there? I don't know. I think as well, you know, there's a lot to talk about transfers every single day. There's a lot of people that are absolutely obsessed by transfers, seemingly live for football transfers and don't consider any other aspect of it. But you've got to say that Liverpool have spent money on two fellas who play up front who aren't doing enough at the moment. You know, Cozy Gakpo for me has just looked neat and tidy at times. You know, you saw a little bit from him, I thought, in one of the Brighton games where it looked like he was linking a little bit more with players and things like that. But overall, you know, he's not looked a big threat or anything. He's not come in and made an impact. You know, Núñez, I like Núñez. He's got something about him. And look, he scored 10 goals for Liverpool this season and is the second top goal scorer. But equally, we know that, you know, he's not taking chances, that he can look a little bit awkward at times. By his own admission, he's been surprised by the levels of the Premier League and the physicality of the Premier League and all the rest of it. So these players haven't come in and sort of hit the ground running to the extent it was needed. And then you throw in, you know, someone like Mo Salah, who, you know, everyone was scrambling for that contract that they wanted him to get. Everyone said it's imperative that Liverpool keep him, that Liverpool make him the highest paid Liverpool player ever. And then he's fell off a cliff. And you know, there was a lot of talk, wasn't there, earlier in the season where people were saying, well, is that a tactical thing? Is he looking a bit more isolated? Is he looking as though he's being told to stay out on the wing more than come into the box? There's a lot of talk about that. But he's not even having a shot on target in games now. And he's missing chances and he doesn't look confident. I think it's 4 games without a shot on target, which is sort of unheard from Mo Salah. And yet he still scored, I think it's 17 goals, all comps this season. So, you know, there are a lot of things where you're just thinking, you know, the old cliche, the hope in your heart thing. I think a lot of us are going to the game on Monday against Everton and it's just hope, not expectation. You're like, well, where is this big turnaround going to come from? And and some of the stuff, the conversations, even you're like, I don't mean to do Nat Phillips down, but he was expecting to move in the transfer window just gone. Where was he expecting to move to? Probably, a club lower down in the Premier League. I mean, Liverpool are 10th, but you take the point, or maybe even top end Championship or somewhere abroad. I don't know. But my point is that people are now sort of saying, could Nat Phillips be the saviour for Liverpool, coming in and shoring up the defence and heading everything away that Everton throw at Liverpool on Monday? I mean, that's a mad place for Liverpool to be after coming so close to a clean sweep last season.
Gareth, just before we let you go, your thoughts on the Manchester City investigation? I mean, from a Liverpool perspective, you came so close to City for a number of these titles.
Yeah.
These alleged financial charges. I mean, we've heard that the potential punishments that City could face if they are found guilty. What's your take on the whole situation?
I mean, look, it's no shock. It would be the first thing I said, and maybe the timing is, but the allegations aren't. It's sort of. There's a meme, isn't there, of a woman falling backwards looking really shocked, and I think that would be the one to sum me up in a sarcastic way. I mean, it's no surprise at all. What I would say is that, I don't like this idea of that we sort of go backwards and somehow retrospectively awarded titles or anything like that. I wouldn't want that to happen, and I think that's ridiculous. I think, if City are to be punished for if the charges are held up and it goes through, punish them then, punish them now, whatever. But this idea of going backwards, and no, not for me, because it wouldn't be right. And how would you celebrate a title that was years and years ago? Now I just don't. It was bad enough for me, Liverpool winning a title and not being able to be in the ground because of COVID. The idea you just awarded one because you got the most points in that season. It's all a bit Back to the Future for me. If you remember the Back to the Future films, if you change one thing, it affects everything in the future. And so obviously if you went back and, Manchester City didn't buy X or Y or, whatever, you didn't spend all this money, well, everything would change, wouldn't it? And, Liverpool might not win all those points because, let's be honest, look, Liverpool and Manchester City have pushed each other on, I think, at times. And, one of the reasons that Liverpool have got so many points in the Premier League under Jurgen Klopp is Manchester City. He took that challenge and ran with it. And I remember him coming out after an interview once saying, well, maybe we have to go and get 100 points. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, 100 points to win the league. That is absolutely wild. But Jurgen Klopp sort of embraced that. So Manchester City pushed Liverpool on. And yeah, I wouldn't want that personally. I see a lot of people talking about that, and obviously ex-Liverpool players, current Liverpool players, coming out and saying, have I won the Premier League in the past and all that?
No is the answer.
Wouldn't be for me, that.
Fair enough. Gareth, you have a new podcast out. What's it called?
Yeah, new podcast called The Late Challenge, just out today on YouTube. Bit of football, bit of news, bit of messing about. So go and have a look at that. It's thelatechallengepodcast.com.
Best of luck with the whole thing, Gareth. Great to have you with us again.
Mate.
Thanks a million.
Cheers.
It's 8:47. John Duggan is with us. John, good morning to you.
Ger Shane, how is the form?
How are you?
Good, thanks. Yourselves?
This City story is...
we talk about something else?
It's explosive.
We talk about something else?
You want to talk about Harry Kane, don't you?
Talk about something else. Dublin Race Festival, Harry Kane, positive things, sunny things, rainbows, not Manchester City.
Well, we haven't mentioned the big racing story, which is
Gordon Elliott.
A positive test. This is a massive story. Gordon Elliott will appear before an independent disciplinary panel of the BHA today after one of his horses was found to have the presence of a prohibited substance at last year's Cheltenham Festival. So this is Zanahir, who finished, I think, third behind.
Yeah, finished third. Yeah, in last year's champion hurdle. So it was a local anaesthetic used in equine medicine, which was found, and they'll have to determine today, the British Horse Racing Authority's independent panel of 3. The hearings at 2:00 whether the horse will be disqualified, whether there's culpability on Gordon Elliott's store, and if so, what the level of punishment will be. So he's trained 150 winners in Ireland this season. His reputation, obviously he moved on from what happened to him in 2021, which was a 6-month ban for bringing racing into disrepute. This was after he was pictured sitting on a dead horse. So he's made a successful return to the training ranks, and obviously now, 5 weeks out from Cheltenham, this is not the kind of thing I'm sure he'd want to be dealing with.
back-page news, for racing on all of the certainly the Irish papers. I don't know if it's quite cracked the back pages.
Well,
yet.
it was in all across the Daily Mail last night.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Back page of the London Times this morning as well. Gordon Elliott faces a disciplinary hearing at the BHA today. So it's just not a good look for the sport.
No, it's not.
To hear what they come out with and say, because most of these cases where you use a medicine, they have to be recorded in advance, and in a big operation like that, you have somebody whose job it is to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So we wait and see exactly what happens today, but that is a big story brewing in racing.
I think the Manchester City thing will just drag on and on. I would agree with the Gareth there that I don't think there'll be no joy in Liverpool or any other club getting these titles retrospectively. I think what is important now is what happens to City in terms of punishment, how long that's going to take. And I think the big thing is the impact it would have on both the manager's future there, Guardiola, and the squad, like who would want to be playing Champions League football. I'm just trying to think now, it's not a comparable situation, but I'm trying to think if Saracens were able to keep their players in rugby after their demotion from the Premiership, and now they're back on top of the Premiership. I think football is a different beast.
Yeah, I mean, I think that didn't you get relegated and come straight back up?
Yeah.
In Calciopoli, and they had a little period where they weren't the biggest team, and then they were the biggest team again for years.
That the Premier League moves so fast. It's got so many big fish now with Newcastle, with Chelsea, with United.
Is it a death sentence?
Well, I think it's hard. If there was only one or two teams, if it was a Bayern-Dortmund situation, for example, like obviously those clubs haven't done anything wrong, but if it was only like two teams, the very top, now we're talking about 6 or 7 teams. It's harder if you're, say, demoted for a season. Everybody leaves. Everybody wants to play Champions League football. There's then, what's the attraction of going to City? But I suppose it just shows that it's interesting the timing of it with the white paper and the independent regulator now coming into British football. But it also maybe shows the Premier League, if they look in the mirror, all of them, that you're not too big to fail. And
it is good, but the fact that the EFL would have to accept them as well, like this could drag and drag and drag. Even if City were demoted, then at that point the EFL have to get involved and say, no, we don't want them.
But I suppose it kind of strikes me to the point, what is Manchester City? Could Manchester City be playing in Fiji? Could they be playing in Hawaii? What is Manchester City as an entity? It's a club owned by the state, United Arab Emirates. And I think this is where football has lost its moorings from a community-based entity that Manchester City would have been around the east side of Manchester, Main Road, into these massive businesses that where I think there was always a balance between the locals, the community and the business, and that has just got so wildly out of sync that these are now sports franchises. And then we have what you've seen at Chelsea recently, absolutely ridiculous stuff last week, where they're spending more than all the other leagues in Europe combined, and that creates just a sense of disconnect, I think, between the people watching it, and they love the football, but what are these? Chelsea might as well be called. They could be called anything.
Yeah, happy days.
Told you not to go there.
What about Harry Kane?
Well, look, I've been lucky enough to see him up close and personal many times, and I think he's a world-class player. I feel really sorry for him, what happened at the World Cup. He's both a 10 and a 9. He's like my shoe size. He's a 9.5. So he's able to score the goals as a 9. He's got a really ability. David Delaney was speaking about this on Saturday, to really hit the ball really quickly before you even blink and it's in the corner of the net. He's got a really quick shot on him. So that's his marksmanship. Like, he's obviously got incredible vision and movement because he's not the fastest player. And then he has that 10 as well, where he's able to drop deep. His close control, as I saw it in Frankfurt there, is off the charts. And he works really hard. It's mad to think that Harry Kane, first of all, his first goal was against Shamrock Rovers for Spurs, and then he played in that Troy Deeney game. He played for Leicester on loan in that 2013 crazy championship semi-final playoff game at Vicarage Road against Watford. So his progression to 267 goals will probably, now 200 Premier League goals, will probably overtake Shearer in terms of...
It was such a big moment though, John. Like, I know it was the 15th minute, but I almost feel like they should have stopped the game and like paused for 20-25 minutes, and British soldiers should have come down from the roof, and they should have had a big ceremony and brought Harry Kane's family on and told the City players to just stand there and wait. We're gonna acknowledge Harry Kane. I'm of course being completely sarcastic because we had an argument on the show this morning about LeBron James' moment. There was still 10 seconds left in the third quarter, and he hits the shot that
they have timeouts in
breaks
basketball.
the NBA championship
They just have
record,
timeout,
and they have a big, massive ceremony in the middle of the match
to acknowledge like the greatest moment that anybody who is alive watching basketball at the
Imagine
moment.
how ridiculous it would be if the Man City players had to stand there and watch a ceremony.
They have timeouts in football.
No, they have a moment to stop after a goal is scored.
Well, if they'd won the World Cup, maybe that might have happened, but they didn't.
Ridiculous stuff.
But yeah, like Spurs played really, really well against City. The best I've seen them by a mile this season. Even Emerson played well. So
there you go.
Interesting, yeah.
Richard Keys over here, John.
Talking about yourself.
Anything else going on?
Well, I mean, I find it interesting that the racecourse attendances seem to have gone up. And I'm not trying to be in any way disparaging here, but maybe there's a Peaky Blinders crowd kind of like seeping into Irish racing at the festivals. Like at Leopardstown, we saw like both the attendances at Christmas and at the Dublin Racing Festival go up. And amazingly, William Mullins had 4 short price favourites that were all beaten. Blue Lord, Appreciated, Lossiemouth and Facile Vega. He still had 8 of the 15 winners. So Gallimarceau, El Fabiolo, Galopon des Champs, Gentleman de Me, State Man, Il Était Temps, Gaelic Warrior and Fun. Just watch out, folks, if you're looking for Cheltenham. None of William Mullins' 10 winners at Cheltenham last year ran at the Dublin Racing Festival. Or one at the Dublin Racing Festival. And Honeysuckle obviously will go now to the Mayor's Hurdle at Cheltenham, hopefully our last hurrah.
Peaky Blinders is to racing what Drive to Survive was to Formula 1, John.
Pretty much. I'm telling you, I think there's definitely a growing movement there, you know.
All right, JD, good
all right,
stuff.
lads.
More from John, of course, on Saturday afternoon. On Off the Ball on News Talk, it is 8:55. Darragh McNamara is going to join us shortly to break down Ireland's stats from the weekend and the game against Wales. First up, here's Brian O'Driscoll talking to Joe about how Ireland's quieter moments against Wales were just part of the ebb and flow of the game.
You have this more as a foot off the gas, the game is done, as opposed to anything to worry about overly?
Well, I do think physically it's very difficult, very challenging to play at the intensity that they played at for 30 minutes, for 80. And when you've built a scoreline like that, inevitably you never see one-way traffic, or rarely, you know, and certainly, you know, in Six Nations games, there's always ebbs and flows and nip and tuck in some capacity. Teams tend not to capitulate, certainly not Wales. You know, there's no thrashings anymore. So it's not going to continue in that regard. You're going to have a reaction, particularly after half time. But we have to remember too that when Wales did get their purple patch, you know, they should have scored a try other than a brilliant save one from Keenan chasing back, which for me was a knock on in the tackle. But anyway, the referee played on, but a brilliant coverage from the fullback. And then you had one from Porter, which was absolutely brilliant in holding up. Was it Morgan again? But the smartness of that, about realising, even a man like Porter, he knew that if he hit Morgan in a collision, his momentum was most likely still going to carry him over. So the way he actually pivots his body and goes in for the tough position immediately, knowing that holding him up is his only opportunity of stopping that try, was really, really clever. And these are hundredths of a second decisions. So there were a couple of moments where the momentum could have gone with Wales, but we managed to hold them off. And then, you know, you go in at half time and you know something's coming in the second half. But when you've got a significant lead like that and you've got the firepower that Ireland have, you know there's going to be another score or two in you, which ended up being the case. But it was very, very comfortable. There was no nervousness, even when Wales, even when they scored and then got the penalty from halfway. Maybe if Ken Owens hadn't thrown that overthrown the line out or crooked line out, and they built something there, maybe there would have been, let's see what comes of this. But it was still a significant gap between the two teams, and Ireland, it did feel as though they had an ability to ratchet it up when they needed to.
That's Brian O'Driscoll talking about Ireland's performance against Wales at the weekend. I'm delighted to say Darragh McNamara is back with us to talk to us about the statistical breakdown. Darragh, how are you?
Fantastic, yeah, very good. Weekend.
Wales were as bad as you predicted they would be in that first half. I was like, this is the difference between the two teams, as was represented in the stats.
Yeah. It was interesting looking back on what I showed you last week, and just, you know, Italy, you know, number one carrying team from the Autumn Nations Cup. You know, anybody who saw that game could see how amazingly fresh and brilliant it is to watch the Italians run at people, run at France. It was amazing. But it was very interesting to see Italy or France kick to the touch so often, and giving Italy the set piece to go again and again and again, which is quite interesting, which is something that was in the stats. So they kicked the touch most, the French. But it was a very interesting weekend, and it was the French, the Welsh and the English are the two teams that kind of coming off the worst. So, but yeah, no, we broke down the game. We did a very similar situation as last week, where I think we have a slide here to show you guys.
This is the first one. Yeah.
So it's just breaking down each team based on overall grade, based on carrying, tackling, rucking, and passing. So Ireland, well, they're on top, as you'd expect, considering their performance. And they're number 1 ranked at tackling, rucking, and number 2 at passing. And then we're ranked number 5th at carrying. And then the French, they're basically 4th, 3rd, and 1st. So passing would be their number 1 overall. So trying to bring back same sort of stats, same sort of analysis, so that people become used to them and become aware of what it is we're doing and kind of how we break it down.
Yeah, okay. Ireland are on top, obviously, after that performance. Is there a clear and obvious improvement in Scotland over the period as well? Like, is there a possibility that's a one-off? Because they've had those one-off performances. What are you seeing in the trends there?
Yeah, well, Scotland are the sort of team that tends to be hot and cold a little bit. You know, they've a very good pack. They are able to control the game. You know, they're not the best passing team in the competition, but they've improved significantly over those 3 legs. But when we're looking at this analysis, when we're looking at this data, you always got to look at what's going on with your opposition as well. So England are like poor. They were really, really poor. They were poor at carrying, they were poor at tackling, they were poor at rucking, you know. So I understand that the English team are trying to, you know, pull back the reins a little bit and try to actually implement some new changes after Eddie, but it's going to take time, you know. And I think that's something you see from both teams, the Welsh and the English, bringing in new coaches.
Yeah,
there's no easy answer to any of these putting 15 guys on the pitch, you know.
Sorry, go on, Ger. Just that Irish tackling grade, 97.9. Like, that seems, like Scotland are next on 88.3, but that seems significantly higher. Is that just because of the nature of the game?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So what we look at when we're looking at tackling isn't just, you know, the ability of a player to tackle. What we're looking at is the distance that the person's hit off the line, so to the game line. We're looking at the distance of the actual tackle from contact to breakdown. We're looking at the overall ratio of tackles to missed tackles, and you know, all of these different metrics that we put into just this grade. Ireland are at the top of all of them,
right? And
that's exactly what's represented here, compared to England, who would be at, you know, at the bottom of missed tackles. They'd be at the bottom of they're very stationary, not coming off the line and hitting, and also they're quite they absorb the tackles rather than breaking through and you know, dominating tackles as it was coined a couple of years ago. So when we say Ireland are 97.9, they're at that number because of the 8 or 9 different activities, the qualitative analysis that we put into this number. Ireland are at the top of nearly all of them, and that's why they're represented here.
It seems just like when you look at the English numbers, it really does represent how weak they currently are.
Yeah, I think they have problems. Like, they had a lot of injuries as well coming up to the actual competition, you know, and up to the game. They have a lot of players that they're picking that probably don't know what it is they're supposed to do, and by Borthwick putting them into the team to begin with, they're probably not entirely sure what it is they're supposed to be doing, which is why Ireland are in such a brilliant position, because, you know,
clarity of purpose. Yeah. Everybody understands what the game plan is. Everybody understands what their role within the game plan is. And look, I mean, I think to Borthwick's credit, he has come in and said, I'm a bit surprised at how what I've inherited. And you can see from the coaching changes already, they've announced that certain coaches are going to be leaving at the end of the Six Nations, and he's getting his full team together at the end of the season. The Leicester boys are coming over, and he's going to get the band back together, and then you can start judging him.
I know, I to be honest, I would much prefer to see Eddie Jones still in there. But, you know, and especially the way Borthwick is speaking and talking about bringing fans back, and, you know, bringing pride, and, you know, back into, you know, bringing pride into the jersey again, is something that Eddie Jones didn't speak about. And it's, you know, it is unfortunate for us leading into the World Cup, but whether or not they can pull it together by then is a big question.
Yeah, it'd be some turnaround from here to there to get to a position where you're actually competitive in a World Cup quarter-final, semi-final and final.
Yeah, well, like, you think about it, it was South Africa that were able to pull this off this time last or 4 years ago. So they're just trying to follow that. But Stafford had a completely different situation where they
slightly longer period as well for Razzie to come in, and like Razzie had obviously been eyeing that job up for a long time. And
pool players is a bit smaller, but a bit more cohesive, if that makes sense, because they're playing in smaller number of teams and stuff like that. So
yeah, I'm actually a bit more worried about Scotland all of a sudden being really good in a World Cup year. And it's actually not really suddenly either. They have been slowly evolving a bit of depth, and players are now fitted. So they do have genuine depth in that squad. Let's
wait until next weekend. We can come back and have a proper chat about this when we have more analysis in it. But I think Scotland are this was a good game by Scotland, but more so it was a poor game by England. And you could probably say that a little bit about Ireland, but we did take that into consideration.
Okay, what's next then?
Yeah, so basically there was so much talk around the back row and about Doris and about Van der Fleer, and so our analysis is based on everything. It's not just based on the tries or the carries or the things that people see that people go, wow, that's really cool. The analysis that we look at absolutely everything. So when we actually threw it into our analytic front end platform, that this is what teams use. So basically this is showing the quality of performances from players 1 to 15. And what we have kind of highlighted here is Peter O'Mahony, and Peter O'Mahony basically was graded the highest of all the back rows in the game from Saturday's game.
Is he actually graded the highest of all the players?
No, of all the pack. Sorry, we've got basically Hugo Keenan, a full back, who had an immaculate game as well. But when you look at the actual forwards, it's Peter O'Mahony who actually graded the highest.
Okay, so Keenan did deserve the Man of the Match award.
Yes. Right. So, what this analysis shows us is players make mistakes, and mistakes could be coming inside on the ruck. They could be a bad pass. They could be lots of different things. But without taking it all into consideration, basically, you don't know this. People would have said that it was Manny had a kind of quiet game and didn't play that much in the game. But when we go to the next slide, we can actually see that he is involved in nearly everything. He's involved in carrying, rucking, hugely instrumental in the lineouts. He's involved in tackling, involved in blocking, involved in defensive lineouts, a little bit of passing, but not much. But the point is that he had an immaculate game. He didn't have any mistakes in the whole game, and nobody's talking about it. And it's like, come on, lads! Like, give credit where credit's due.
It is interesting because there's definitely a view that the back row is largely in situ. We know exactly who's going to be playing. If Conan comes in, Doris will move to 6 and O'Mahony will be gone. No one's ever taken Josh Van der Fleer's position, and the one under pressure is O'Mahony, because it's not just Conan who might come in. It could be Baird, it could be any combination. Yeah. He's the one who's at risk, and you're actually saying, now hang on a second, his performance is actually quite far ahead of everybody else. It's not.
Well, it's just from this game, from this weekend's, from this weekend's. But the point is that these three guys are working in unison. They're working together. We need to basically understand what it is these guys do, so that anybody else that comes in
has to at least reach that or exceed it.
And that's what the next slide is doing. And people can go in and use a version of this using our reactrugby.com. So we have a free analysis tool for people to go in and help them understand who are the best players. So users can go in and use this analysis, but this is just a kind of breakdown of what each player is doing. So
for our audio listeners, you've got pie charts of O'Mahony, Van der Fleer and Caelan Doris, and you show the different, I don't know, is there 10 criteria there?
These are all the kind of fundamental skill sets. So in tackling, we have tackling assists. In carrying, we've our rucking, we've counter rucking, lineouts, lineout lifting and throwing. Defensive line. So these are kind of like an amalgamation of lots of different activities into different categories.
During a game, Derek, say when coaches are trying after 50, 55, 60 minutes deciding who's coming off and who's staying on, clearly some of these skills and activities are more physically arduous than others, so I guess carrying and passing aren't maybe as tough on the body as the maul or rucking or tackling. So if a certain player's percentages in, say, maul or tackling are higher than in others, could they see these stats and maybe use that information to decide who comes off? Or is it, I know of course age comes into it as well, but it certainly would be indicative as to who should be more tired than someone else.
I wouldn't even say age comes into it that much. Okay. this is probably something for a longer version of this, because it's, we have the data here. I can walk you through exactly what it is. We've a front end system where we can look at the performance of an individual player throughout the entire game. So, but what we do is we take the activities themselves and the grades to split the analysis. Now it's going to be a little bit more technical stuff, but we basically split the game into kind of four kind of categories that you'd call them. So tactical, technical, physical, and mental. So if they make mental mistakes, we identify that. If they're physically involved in the game, we identify that. So all of these metrics we're able to pull apart and put together again. And
I presume if you're a team, you're overlaying the data that's coming from their GPS with this type of thing to show.
You could, yeah, definitely. But and I suppose Andrew Porter, who had a few errors during the weekend, just after halftime, and this is something we're going to talk about a little bit later on, is just around the new rules that have been brought in and how that's affected the game. But those are the signs of people not being fit enough or maybe taking a knock. Is those fatigue, yeah, which is they're going in, they're making tackles where they over the try line, or they're knocking the ball on, or they're doing 2 or 3 things in a row that are mistakes. That should be an identifier rather than age or previous experience. But what we do is we can show basically the performance of a player over the entire game, over an entire season, and identify trends of where they're losing their work rate, basically.
Okay. So the back row seems to work perfectly in concert together. You want those different graphs to show different things. Yeah. And that's why this trio is...
Yeah, and like Van der Fleer, so they're different types of players. Van der Fleer and Ken Doris would be much more dynamic players, because they're doing bits of everything. They'd be ranked top players based on tackling, carrying and rucking and lineouts, while Peter Manny would, he'd be much more involved in just rucking, lineouts and carrying. But a lot of that stuff is behind the scenes. It's not the stuff that you kind of go, oh geez, that was brilliant. But that's the stuff that really is important to help the guys score the tries.
So Manny's still playing at his peak.
Yeah, well, he did in this game. Now he got taken off kind of reasonably early, but I suppose it's better to keep him
fresh for the challenges ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so what's the next one?
Yeah, so the next one is a bit. I should have done a little bit more work on this, but basically, what World Rugby are trying to do is trying to increase the amount of time that's happening in the game. So we look at kind of 3 separate metrics. There's the overall 80 minutes that's expected to be of the game. Then there's the minutes that the players are on the pitch. So that's gone up to 105 minutes in some games, so that's an extra 25 minutes where the players are on the pitch. Those 2 data points are not really useful for teams, for players. What's useful is understanding when the ball goes into play, when the ball goes out of play, and stitching them all together. And in the 15-20 games that we did in 2022, the average time of ball in play was only 30 minutes. So that's where the ball was in play and when we look at Ireland, their ball in play was 33 minutes. So they rank number 1 of all the teams that are in this, compared to France, who are ranked like 3rd or 4th, or 3rd or 4th last, should I say.
Right.
So basically, Ireland like keeping the ball in play. If you keep the ball in play, you're able to implement your game plan, which is high tempo, high work rate, to try and cause mistakes based on fitness, based on performance. And when we look at 2023 and after these 3 games, there's only a small set.
Does this connect to your earlier point about France kicking the ball out?
Yeah. So exactly. So they like to reset. They like to
that's Sean
get
Edwards.
Territory.
Is it? Like from a defensive
French rugby. It's French rugby. Like if you watch French rugby, it's a lot. But like that would be a strategic game plan. Is going to the corners or going out of play. Compared to other teams like Wales. Wales played into Ireland's game plan by kicking the ball in play and keeping it in play. If we want to play France and we want to beat France and we want to implement our game plan, we keep the ball in play as much as physically possible.
See, it's tricky, right? Because you're then kicking the ball back to that French back 3 who are pretty good at that bit. Like, they get the ball and they're not going to kick it to our back 3. They're going to kick it out because... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, well, like, I would...
Our game plan plays into some of their strengths.
I would argue with that a little bit. I think we have this general understanding that Le France, or play this expansive game plan, but they don't.
It's not expansive though; it's counter-attacking, right? So even Jalabert at the weekend just comes off the bench, and his immediate instinct when he gets the ball is to.
But I don't know what the guy's name is. The fullback for Toulouse, he's not an attacking 15. He's a kicking 15. He kicks a goal and he kicks a touch, and he's able to catch the ball, but he wouldn't be an attacking threat. Personally, I don't think that they're that big of a threat. What their big threat is by
spoiling your line out.
Yeah, spoiling your line out, putting pressure on the opposition, playing a slow, methodic game plan. Everybody knows what's supposed to do, but it's nothing too expansive or extraordinary compared to Ireland. Ireland will be much more strategically difficult to play.
Piece in one of the papers today that they'd gone out of their way to sign one of the South African coaches who's the architect of how South Africa play, and I was like, that doesn't really make that much sense. But actually what you're saying is that it's very South African in style.
It's very French rugby as a whole isn't very flamboyant. In the top 14, it's bang,
amazing
bang.
Marketing then they have,
we've been brought up to think of Flair and Philippe Saint-André or Philippe Sella,
Serge Blanco.
Yeah, Serge
But
Blanco.
It's all bullshit, is that what you're saying? Largely, apart from a few moments here and there.
I don't insult any French people.
We're just holding a mirror up to them.
To be my client.
This week we can.
I want them to help France. But the idea is that the information here though will be trending very much to improving Ireland's chances, okay? Because Ireland's whole game plan is very similar to Leinster, which is ball and time play, put under pressure, put teams under pressure, ensure that you have the ball in the right places so that you can strike and pick and drive when necessary, or off the 9 if necessary, and then off 10 when necessary. These rules and these implementation of these rules by the referee is a massive plus for Ireland. There's been, when we look at actually production and the amount of grades or the amount of output that each team implements, there's a 34% increase in the amount of activities that are happening in the game based on these rules from this weekend's games.
So the rule changes are actually working.
Yeah, now there's drawbacks to that as well. There's and things that haven't shown yet, which is injuries. Ireland are really lucky in the first game that they didn't get any injuries. As soon as you get injuries, your whole game plan changes because you have to shuffle around what you're going to do. And that's what this weekend, that's what I'm hoping, well, not that I'm hoping, what I predict is going to happen is that France are going to come out of the blocks, million miles an hour, Ireland weather the storm. Even if they go behind by a significant margin, I think Ireland in the second half will, it doesn't matter if they, what is a 6-2 split of pack. Ireland, if they're able to keep the ball in play and they're able to implement their strategy and they're able to actually spread the ball around like they have done over the last 12 months, then I don't see France living with Ireland.
Okay, so a furious comeback in the second half that is successful finally for Ireland.
Well, if Ireland go out and win it from the start, I'll be happy with that as well. It's not just the second half. But the point is though is that the rules that have been implemented by World Rugby have seen a significant increase in ball and play, which is around 21%. Like, think about if you were expected to do 21% extra time each morning on your work.
Sometimes we do. Yeah,
sometimes we do.
It's
sometimes we do. Yeah,
but it's significant.
It's but the other side of it as well is that Ireland haven't increased compared to the rest of the teams. It's the other teams that are catching up to Ireland. This is now time for Ireland to put their foot down and actually, because the referees have a massive impact on this. It's the referees who are
allowing this happen. Yeah.
Well, they're implementing it. These are new rule changes. It's the rules of the referee it's the job of the referee to implement the rules of the game. So, but it's Ireland's opportunity to get to the lineouts quicker. It's to get to set the scrum quicker, kick off quicker, everything else.
We're getting some unexpected opportunities to see more Conor Murray stats. I know we had some numbers of him last week, but didn't expect that the first two games. And certainly it appears that he'll be playing again this weekend. So we'll have plenty more numbers to.
Yeah, no, well, we might come back to that. I suppose it's looking at the games from a whole and a higher level and trying to make it somewhat more. I suppose easier to digest because like a lot of this stuff nobody else is really talking about.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the O'Mahony stuff is really interesting because I think there's a general sense of sports fans after a period of time people want to see the shiny new thing, but be very careful, hasten slowly.
Yeah, but it's that all of them working in conjunction. It's not just Peter O'Mahony. It's Peter O'Mahony doing something slightly differently to Caelan Doris, and Doris doing something slightly differently. And that being a perfect
dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
For now, anyway. All right, Derek, good stuff. ReactRugby.com for anybody who wants to use those tools.
Yeah. And any professional teams out there looking for this type of analysis,
give you a call.
Get in touch. Yeah, we're ready to go. Ready to rock.
18 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTBAM. More from Derek, of course, after the game next week. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio for you today. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is the incredible story of Catherine Switzer and the Boston Marathon. Koi Gig is live from 3. Our retro panel is How Far Does Doping Go? James McLean is OTB Gold, and congratulations to James and his family on the birth of their 4th child. He played a couple of hours after it, so fair play for that. You can follow Off the Ball across our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network for all the best in latest sports content. Up after the break, Darragh Joyce and Conor McKenna on the line live to talk about the Brisbane Lions pre-season. Stay tuned.
And James, could you talk us through your try from the weekend? It must have been a particularly satisfying.
Yeah, he hasn't stopped talking about it. It's, like he said, I've been showing everyone the video, and it was funny. We watched it again this morning. A couple of phases beforehand, Pete gets a boot to the rib or something. I'm just screaming at him to just do something, and he ends up lazily falling into a tackle on the inside, and I'm thinking, oh no. And Ports and Shino came around, and I felt we could just get into the space, and Bigger put it in the bread basket, and the boys were surprised I made it all the way, and it was pretty satisfying, I guess, because a few years ago I wouldn't have done that. I would have done something pretty stupid. So
what do you mean?
Sure, look, I would have tried to whack someone or shot in, or and I just kind of was in the right place at the right time, and sure, look, that's all she wrote, yeah.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Zebo going on his own, he gets the try!
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Carberry gets over the line, try from Munster!
Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Let's go down under, and I'm delighted to say a very good morning / good evening to Darragh Joyce and Conor McKenna. Gentlemen, you're both very welcome. Conor, I might start with you. The wet and windy pictures from the Allianz Football League might have made it all the way to sunny Australia. Were you feeling any pangs of regret that you weren't out there?
No, I haven't really followed too much, to be honest. Just seeing the results after the game, but sort of happy here in sunny Brisbane.
Yeah, it sounds nice.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a change from Melbourne. Melbourne was a bit of a shock to the system. I thought I was going over there for sunshine and rainbows, but it was very similar to home during winter. You have your 4-degree days and a lot of rain, so Brisbane's a bit of a change. It's been 35, 36 degrees for the last 2 weeks, so it's been a bit too warm, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah, it looks like you've got a bit of a suntan there. Darragh, what's the crack with you? You were, I don't know if you were tempted or not, but certainly you were linked with perhaps coming back and picking up the hurl again and sticking around Kilkenny. But it turns out that it's always sunny in Australia.
Yeah, very much so. Tempted to go back home. I had plenty of chats with Derek Ling, and I was in doing a bit of training with him when I was at home. I went back to hurl for my local club and played with my brother and family and that kind of thing, so that was good fun. But when I came back down, I kind of realised how good Australia is and how sunny it is. So yeah, I was planning on moving home for Christmas, but settled back in pretty well, and then decided to give it another crack, and then lucky enough ended up here with Conor.
How does that come about when you're back in Ireland? Do you still have an agent in Australia kind of saying, here, listen, we have some interest from clubs, there's an opportunity here for you, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I was let go by St Kilda, and then obviously my contract is finished up, and then your manager is paid by your contract. But I had open and honest conversations with my manager, and he kind of convinced me when I got back down that you'll get another chance at it, and he was pretty optimistic about it. And yeah, that was kind of where it all began. When I came back down, he sat down and said, look, we'll sort out another club, there's interest in you. So he wasn't obviously getting paid during that period, but just a gentleman helped me out all along the way, and so just continue that on with him.
How do you end up choosing Brisbane, Conor? Like for yourself, I know you kind of timed coming home with Tyrone very, very well, and won your All Ireland, so at least it gives you the freedom, I guess, without regret, to go back to Australia. But was Brisbane an easy choice? I guess you want to add an AFL title to that as well.
Yeah, I suppose, as you say, I came home and wanted to go home to play for Tyrone and my club, and was lucky enough to win the Ireland. And to be honest, it probably just made it easier to come back once I'd sort of ticked that off the bucket list. So, as you say, if they go on to win one this year, it'll be still hard to say it, but not as bad. So then just got in the communication with a few teams and had 4 or 5 teams to pick from, and Brisbane were probably the one with the biggest chance of winning the premiership, and that was sort of the goal. Tag Kennelly, he's the only player to win an Ireland and a premiership, so that's my goal, is try to get a premiership and get it in level with him.
I know I'm dealing in hypotheticals here, but if Tyrone hadn't won that All Ireland a couple of years ago, would you have stayed on a bit longer here, or were you always tempted to go back?
Yeah, I was definitely always tempted and leaning towards going back. I'd say, as I say, it just definitely made it easier decision, but I still think probably this year I probably would have came back, I'd say, anyway.
You get that itch, I suppose. Like that seems to be something, and I know you would have. You mentioned Ty Kennelly there. He's someone I know the two of you have dealt with quite constantly. So are conversations with people like that who have been there and done it quite important in making your decision?
Yeah, there are in ways, I suppose, going from a professional athlete and working 4 or 5 days a week and kicking a football around, then going back home, working 9 to 4, 9 to 5, and then going up to a wet windy night and training from 6 to 10. It's an easy decision, I suppose, and it definitely put in perspective and made me probably appreciate more of a lifestyle of what I have over here, and they just made it easy in that sense. But as you say, talking to like the lads, Dar and Tag and boys that have been through that, and I'm happy I went home, and definitely the right decision at the time, but just give me a clear mind that I definitely want to give it another crack for a few more years.
How easy is it for you to transition back to being a full-time athlete after being somebody who's, as you say, going to work and then going training? Are you straight back into it and feel like you were when you were a full-time athlete already, or is there a bit of a transition period?
It's a definitely a good transition, I suppose, getting back into, as I say, kicking a ball around for work. But yeah, it takes a while. It definitely takes a toll on the body, and I suppose the tiredness is a big one. You be in there from probably 7 o'clock in the morning till 3 or 4 in the evening, 3 days a week. So it definitely takes a toll on the body, and it just takes probably 2 weeks to get back in the swing of things. But to be honest, after that, I sort of felt back at home probably, and sort of just happy playing AFL again, to be honest. And
in terms of your own form at the moment, is it back to where it would have been before you came home to Tyrone?
Yeah, I've probably picked it up quicker than I thought I would have, to be honest. My kicking now has been fine, and that was probably my main area. I suppose I hadn't kicked the ball in 2.5 years really, so to come back and sort of be kicking good enough again, I was happy with that. And then it was just probably learning the different game plan and different tactics of the team. So that's probably the main issue at the minute, just getting used to that. But the more game time I get, I'm probably a better learner playing the game than actually listen to a coach talk about it, you know.
Fair enough. Darragh, what about you going home to pick up the hurl again? So people might be familiar, they might not, but you had a very successful underage career. Obviously your brother is a storied multiple All-Ireland winner, so it's in the genes and it's there somewhere. How easy did you find it going back to hurling, and was that maybe part of your decision to come back? Is that you would have found it difficult to get back to the level that you feel you need to be at, or would that have been fairly straightforward? What's your instinct?
It wouldn't have been straightforward. I remember I landed on a Wednesday, trained Thursday night, and then played my first game on a Saturday. And I played in midfield, and I just got bypassed, didn't know where to run. I was kind of running footy patterns and kind of just got bypassed the whole game. But I kind of got slotted into the half forward line then, and I was under a few puckouts and kind of got a little bit of a flow into my game. So it was coming back to me, and just getting the touch in. Like it's like riding a bike. Like I did it for so long, so the touch is going to be there after a certain period of time. But it was just like striking on the run and different things like that. When you get under fatigue, that's what came against me. But really enjoyed it. Like going back to play for your club is always special. And yeah, like it's still on the radar. I'd love to do what Conor did, go home and win All Ireland. That's always been a dream as a kid. Like I didn't dream of playing AFL. I dreamed of lifting Lee McCarthy with Kilkenny. So yeah. It's still on my radar, hopefully at some stage.
I was going to say, I mean, apart from maybe the O'Halpines, who obviously were dual as kids, and famously Sean Oak played both hurling and football. There haven't been that many hurlers who've made it to the AFL, have there?
I don't think so. Mark Keane is obviously a dual player, and he's just after signing up with Adelaide, so he can dabble in both. But I'm thinking I'm the first Kilkenny man anyway, for sure.
How did you get scouted? Did you just go to a combine kind of thinking I might want to go here, or did someone come and say, okay, here, listen, you've got the profile?
So I went to school in Good Counsel College in New Ross, Wexford, and they're like a big football stronghold. So played my football there, got scouted from there. I think it was Ty Kennelly's brother that actually saw me, and then just got brought to a Dublin combine, the same kind of process as Conor, and then came down to the Australian draft. I came down when I was pretty young, like I hadn't been to college yet, so I was kind of a bit homesick when I first went down. And there was like talk of a contract being put in front of me, and then I just like came home for a year. St Kilda at the time worked with me for a full year, and then went to uni, went to UCD, and then learned how to fend for myself, and then was grown up enough to make the trip down.
Darragh, I think I've heard you speaking before about Eddie Brennan and the conversation you might have had with him when he was the Kilkenny under-21 manager, maybe at training one night, and like maybe regrets from not regrets, but him looking back on his own career, and if you get opportunities to go down under, you only really get it once, so you have to jump at it. Like were conversations like that with people like Eddie, I guess, pretty significant in your own decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that night. It was in St. Kieran's College, and it was pissing down rain, and we were getting flogged in a running session. And I just had a chat with him after it on the way in, and we were drowned. But Eddie was brilliant. Like he just said, that if he had the opportunity to travel when he was young, and an opportunity like this came up, he would have jumped at it. And I've seen a few of my friends now have moved down to Melbourne. Like if there's a mass exodus of Ireland at the moment, and like a few friends just come down to work in Melbourne and whatnot, and they just said if they didn't go now, they'll never go because they'll get into a job at home or whatnot. So for me, it was a no-brainer, the opportunity to be a professional athlete. And if I didn't make it after 2 years, I would have learned a whole heap and came home and hopefully become a better hurler from it. So it just so happens I'm still here 7 years later.
Conor, I don't think we've spoken to you about the end of your previous time in Australia since you came home. That all got a bit mad. You were kind of rounded on by the Australian media. Has that all disappeared? Is there any hangover with your relationship with the Australian media from all that stuff?
No, and it's probably a big difference from being in Brisbane compared to Melbourne. AFL in Melbourne is just like a premiership in England. It's massive and sort of live and breathe it down there, whereas up in Brisbane it's a lot of NRL, the Rugby Union, so it's a lot different compared to Melbourne. There's no real cameras at the club that often, and if there is any media, it's maybe 1 or 2 cameras. Where Melbourne, you could have anyone sort of land at your door at the club on a daily basis. So it's been a nice change. It hasn't been a whole pile of media so far, which is always a plus.
So they don't care, you don't care. It's all grand.
Yeah, no, it didn't really bother me. Like I think at that time I had already minded me up I was going to come home anyway.
Right.
I certainly knew that year I wasn't really enjoying it, and probably made the decision that I was going to give it 1 more year and come home, play for Tyrone and play for English, but didn't really make it through the year, and happy I did make that decision. But yeah, I don't think no matter what happened that year, to be honest, I was always going to come home.
It's great to have that flexibility to move in this scenario at the moment in your career and in your life. I suspect it's like, okay, I can do this for a period of time, because it gives you a certain freedom where this isn't the single thing that you've ever dreamed of doing. Now you've got kind of ticked off a lot of boxes. What sense of freedom does that give you about what's coming next?
Yeah, I think it does. I think probably talked myself into nearly hating Australia when I was here the first time, and just always wanted to get home to play for Tyrone and play for English, and it was probably what I dreamt of doing. And now that you say I've ticked that off, it probably just gives me a time that I'm actually probably a lot more relaxed out here now, and know if it's I stay for 2 years, grand. If I stay for 3 years or 4 years, I've no real timeline on it, to be honest. I'm set my girlfriend move over, so whatever sort of works for us is grand. And as you say, that freedom, just knowing I'm not rushing home for anything, or I'm not stuck here, sort of, it definitely gives you a bit more freedom and just makes you more happy, probably.
Is it a strange feeling, Conor, when you're those years where you were over in Australia and not playing for Tyrone, watching Tyrone play in the championship? Like, it sounds like a terrible thing to say, but is there an element of your being that almost doesn't want Tyrone to win when you're not there? Like, you want to be part of the All-Ireland winning team when it does come around. Luckily for you, you were. But I guess it's a strange feeling watching those games.
It is, yeah, completely. My first year Tyrone under 21s won All-Ireland. They beat Tipperary, and that was a big moment that sort of hit home that I most likely would have been involved in that team. And it sort of probably made me question why I was here, and sort of stubborn fella, and I sort of always wanted to play one AFL game, so I said no, I'll stay and put that aside. And then I went to the All-Ireland final in 2018, watched it in Croke Park, and thrown up maybe 5-1 in the first 10 minutes, and I felt physically sick. I thought I was going to throw up. Like, it was a horrible feeling. You wanted to win, but you just felt like, oh my God, if they do win, I haven't been there. Like, is it worth it being over here? So probably got very lucky in that way, that for myself, I didn't win it that year, because it would have been sick for me, but obviously great for them. And then, as you said, just got pretty lucky coming home and sort of slotted in, and everything just sort of fell into place.
It's mad, because I think of I used to play soccer with Conor Moyna, plays for Cavan, and of course I think he went travelling the year Cavan won the Ulster title for the first time in years. And you think about people like that. And Ronan O'Gara wrote a piece in the Irish Examiner a few weeks ago where he was talking about after he retired, watching Ireland playing in games against the All Blacks and almost hoping that they'd lose. So there is that. It's a strange feeling. You know, not to want your county or your country to win, but I guess that's sport.
It is, yeah. That's, I suppose, as Darragh says, it's a sacrifice you make when you come over here. You always have the possibility that a club or a county's going to win something at home, and I probably just lucky enough I didn't miss anything too great and got to be involved in All-Ireland, which was amazing. So probably got pretty lucky compared to most players, I'd say.
Darragh, what's your crack with a contract and all that? How long are you settled out for? Because the life of a professional sportsman is pretty brutal. What's your situation at the moment?
So I've just signed a year contract. So it all happened kind of pretty quick. I was waiting for an opportunity like this to come up. I had signed with Collingwood VFL side, so I was literally going to work for a year and play VFL in the hope of getting picked up before the season like just happened, or else mid-season if you're having a good year. So literally I got a phone call, I had a meeting on a Friday, had a phone call on a Monday, and then it was confirmed on a Tuesday. And I flew up to, and Conor collected me from the airport on a Sunday with a 1 year contract. So that's how it all happened. So I'm literally here now just to train hard and try and force my way into the best 22 come round one.
How sickening is the pre-season?
Pre-seasons are tough, especially up here where it's so humid. I was doing a lot of stuff myself, so I only started like the last month. So I've actually probably timed it well. They're coming into playing games now. So last Friday we played 20 minutes of a match between ourselves. This Friday we'll add on a bit more to that, but Conor was probably there for a bit of the harder running sessions before Christmas.
You're shaking your head there, Conor.
I had to do my own running over Christmas to try and keep fit. So getting back into football boots full time kind of blew me up there the last couple of weeks, but the body's feeling good. But yeah, I've timed it pretty well coming into games now, so it's this is the best time of the year.
You're, I think, 26, Darragh, so there's still plenty of time for you to come home and have a swan song that involves Liam McCarthy.
Yeah, not 26 yet, just a couple of months' time. So plenty of time yet, but this year just focused for Brisbane anyway, so see how it goes.
Would you like to see either of you, like Conor, I guess, I don't want to start the professionalism and amateur debate in GAA just yet, but it's kind of been rumbling all the time, and I guess it's getting more professional in terms of the commitment of players and in terms of the finances pumped into the game as well. Is that something you'd like to see down the tracks?
It's a hard one. Like I'd say, suppose being back and playing as a county player for 2 years, it gave me an unbelievable appreciation of what them players do. And when I look at players having 10-year county careers, like, I don't understand how it's possible. It's just such a commitment, and we probably weren't even to that level because of COVID for a year and a half, so we were probably a bit less than normal. But yeah, it's an interesting one, because the boys give so much and probably in a lot of cases gets a little back in terms of silverware and winning stuff. I suppose only one team can really win the Sam Maguire, so the other two's 32, so they don't get much. But I don't know how it's fixed, but it's too much, I think, for an amateur player to balance a life with football. It sort of takes over your whole life, and then the split season's good too, but when we won All-Ireland, we didn't really have an off season for 2 years, because your off season or your throne finishes in the week after we won All-Ireland. We had a match the week after, so it never stops. It's just sort of a continuous circle of football, and I'm a type of person, I sort of like to get away from it. I don't like football that much. I like to play it, but I don't like to be swarmed by it.
Yeah, I think that's increasingly what a lot of people are making the decisions, and we're seeing people take a year out in their mid-20s to go travelling and come back, and you're seeing it with several of the Dubs, but it's happening in every county as well. Listen, lads, we wish you the very best of luck this season. Congratulations on the new contract, Darragh and Conor. If you are the next man on that list of people who have won both of those medals, that'll be a fairly sensational end to this season for you. So thanks a million, lads.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
And Conor McKenna there in sunny Brisbane.
Impressive. I can't imagine you think about GAA pre-seasons in the December cold, and they're I'd imagine very tough at inter-county level, but at the humid of Brisbane, I mean, doing those runs and strength and conditioning in that heat, I can't fathom it. Be tough.
A lot of love for your top 10, except lol, no way Skulls is number 1. Keane is the number 1, let's be honest. Where is Park? Skulls, ha 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 ha.
A lot of hate. See, I'm getting hate from United fans who think Skulls shouldn't be number 1, but also Liverpool fans who think that Skulls is nowhere near the best Premier League midfielder.
He's not.
Nowhere near, though.
Everybody else was on your side, though, when it came to the LeBron celebrations. Bobby Dwyer says, you were pretty dismissive of Kane breaking the Spurs record yesterday, Ger. I think the term doing his job was said. Well, that's because you were threatening to, abandon us / cheat on us, Bobby. That's all that was.
What would Roy Keane make of the LeBron stopping the game in the third quarter?
Right, game recognised game. If he was there in the front row, he'd be there with his little...
It's his job, though.
He's a Yankees fan, Keane, though, according to all the photographs that we saw from the World Cup in '94. Let's be honest, it's disrespectful to the opposition. Get on with it. It's a match, says Super Ken.
Agreed.
354.
Have your celebrations by all means, and LeBron is one of the greatest athletes of our time, certainly. So he deserves the celebration, but I just think it was a bit over the top stopping the game in the third quarter. Let the quarter play out. There's only 10 seconds left, or do it after the match.
Shin, we're live each morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Shane's going to be joined by Aisling tomorrow to take you through the morning's top sports stories. We'll also have You Had to Be There and plenty more besides. Tune into Off the Ball this evening for all your sporting needs. You'll hear more from Adam Pope now from last night's programme, who took Joe through all things Leeds. See you tomorrow.
Football show. Dan McDonald of the Irish Independent in studio. Exciting times. Daniel.
Joe, it's good to see you. You're fresh.
So fresh, Dan. So fresh.
Looking forward to seeing you marching the streets of my locality.
I know.
Yeah.
There has been, for some time now, I would drive by from somewhere carefree, maybe the driving range, who knows, maybe just doing whatever, and Dan McDonald scowling, pushing a buggy, headphones on, and I looked at him and thought, oh man, that does look relentless and grim.
Yeah.
So now I'll nod to you from across the footpath.
Now that's it. Oh well, maybe I could be driving now, just rolling down the window and sort of, shouting out some platitudes. But no, it's good to see you. Good to see you got a bit of coverage for your some good journalism. Some good journalism on you at the weekend.
Stop.
Malloy doesn't like to talk about it. He likes to keep his life away from the mic private.
Can we move on? There is lots going on. Manchester City versus Premier League is the story that we didn't really see coming. We had Nick Harris on earlier on. So Nick and others who've been very on top of this story, they probably had an inkling that the Premier League since 2018 has been conducting this massively high profile investigation into Manchester City and their financial dealings. I think the majority of us over the last 4 years did not know that the Premier League were compiling this massive investigation and were about to ambush them with the proceedings, and it's suddenly blown up in a massive way. Now there is the cynical cohort who think this will make lawyers lots of money and amount to not very much, maybe a fine. And then there is a school of thought increasingly as you read different pieces and listen to different people that this could have a lot more teeth in it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's difficult to come down on one side with confidence. It does appear, just from reading the various reports of people on the Manchester beat, that Man City seem to be briefing very confidently about what's going to happen or not going to happen, and from their instance, they believe they'll be fine.
Manchester City welcome this investigation.
This is what we've been waiting for. This is finally, like, people have been whispering about behind our back for years. Now we can put it to bed once and for all.
Well, their statement says we have irrefutable evidence in support of our position. As such, we look forward to this matter being put to rest once and for all.
This matter, what is this matter? Like Manchester City's rise to prominence. Like, you look back, and I mean, I think it was maybe 10, 11 years ago, there was a story where I think various people at Liverpool, Arsenal, and another club at the time, were coming together to raise questions about the Etihad deal and that they had with Man City, and that question has always lingered right in the background, and there's been more substantive reporting. There's no suggestion there's anything wrong with the Etihad deal, but in some of the more recent deals, with sort of lesser known companies, say, there's been these question marks, and when Newcastle came in, of course, there was all this talk about related party sponsorships and what was the Premier League stance towards it. But people probably, in some way, sort of thought, this is the game, isn't it? Yeah. This is the game, and everyone's getting rich along with the Man City Express to some degree, as in Man City's wealth has elevated the Premier League in some ways, and people sort of see, at times the European Super League, Man City are very much in concert with the other big clubs, and you sort of assume, this will be okay. So, but I don't know. I mean, there's sort of an absurd element to it. Reading stories coming in tonight. Man City swooping for some top lawyer, like a transfer deadline story, been written that way. Like, you can't get away from that sort of language of the Premier League drama language. Lord Panic, I think his name is, and who's going to be paid wages comparable with, or could conceivably be paid wages on daily rates comparable with Premier League superstars.
Up to £80,000 sterling per day for this lawyer, if you're interested, Dan.
It's a good gig, yeah.
So I think everybody's generally au fait with this, but I am conscious it was a bank holiday Monday and people are busy. Premier League statement arrived on their website yesterday with no fanfare. Stories above it included Harry Kane breaks record, Sean Dyche wins, and tips for your fantasy team this week.
It wasn't a bank holiday in the UK as well. They wouldn't have stuck it out there otherwise.
So, for your investigation, 100 plus breaches, financial breaches on Manchester City's part between 2009, Sheikh Mansour took over the club, Abu Dhabi took over the club in 2008. So from 2009 to 2018, 100 different alleged breaches, false accounts, so not providing accurate information, not disclosing full salaries to both managers and players, breaching rules on profit and sustainability. In effect, they're saying there was financial chicanery here of various kinds, and what's more, you systematically lied to us. You gave us false accounts, false information every step of the way, and here we go. And the point has been made that, UEFA slapped a 2-year ban on Manchester City back in 2020. There was a statute of limitations issue there. Now, there were a few charges that the CAS panel felt hadn't been established properly as well, so it wasn't all down to statute of limitations. But in effect, when the UEFA 2-year ban went to CAS said, there's a 5-year period here, and these fall outside that 5-year period. So Manchester City are away pretty much scot-free, £10 million fine for not cooperating, but pretty much scot-free on a technicality. Crucially, in the Premier League, there is no statute of limitations whatsoever. So that defence is gone. Now we get to see what the other defence would be. And again, this has been bubbling away for so many years. Like their Spiegel in 2018, it seems, according to an Athletic piece I read, their report on Roberto Mancini's financial arrangement is what prompted the Premier League to really look into this and get going on this. So Mancini, I think people have heard this at this stage. This is known since 2018, or reported since 2018. He got his base salary from Man City, 1.25 million a year, and then he got another 1.75 million in exchange for doing 4 training sessions, 4 days training over in Abu Dhabi. Sheikh Mansour, chairman of Al Jazeera, and he was given 1.75 million per year for those 4 days. In effect, that's off Man City's books, and therefore, in terms of financial fair play and our profitability and our overheads, we look a lot healthier than we actually are. And so the point has been made, is it just Roberto Mancini? Is he the only Manchester City manager or player where there was such an arrangement? So 100 plus charges. And the other point which has been made is that the Premier League here have taken all their chips, to use a poker analogy, and pushed them right into the middle of the table. I mean, if they have this wrong, all hell will break loose. That £80,000 a day lawyer will be coming after them if they've somehow got this all wrong. But the Premier League clearly have said, we are pretty confident here, and in we go. So it's extraordinary, 100+ charges.
Yeah, and like, it does appear, and you step back, and I suppose you think closer to home, like you had the FAI fallout, and there was obviously, and there was salacious information, and there was stuff that was, God, that's a joke, you know, and things that people would remember, you know, certain sort of misdemeanors or allegations or details. But when it came down to it, like having to restate accounts and having issues with accounts would appear to be by far the most serious thing you're dealing with here. There's obviously a lot of other stuff, their non-cooperation, and various other details, which I presume will be teased out in more detail in due course. But this is my point. On one hand, you just think when Man City are confidently briefing, this will be fine. Yeah, this will be absolutely fine. But on the other hand, like, there is this thing of, well, if it is proven in some way that the wrong account, you know, there was, you know, falsified accounts, or however you want to phrase it, not correct accounts presented. Yeah. I mean, how do you sort of square that easily and go, well, yeah, we'll take you a few points off your, or take this fine? Like, you know, particularly, as you mentioned, like the Premier League is sort of governed. I mean, how the Premier League started, I mean, there's a breakaway, but it's governed by its own handbook or whatever. And it is obviously, it seems like if it goes appeal, you know, you go into a form of the legal system, you just not going to cast with this one. No. But I mean, that does, I don't know, to me, I just think, okay, if that first charge or those top line charges are proven in some ways, then maybe it is possible that this isn't the classic sporting whitewash where we've been there and you see in all sorts of codes, you know, dramatic punishment floated or even in some cases applied and eventually withdrawn and it goes away. Now, the fact that this it appears conservatively like this could take at least a year, or certainly if it was done in months rather than a year, that would be quick. What do you do in the meantime as well? Like, you know, do you just say business as usual? You possibly have to, you know, until you're deemed to have been found guilty.
Guardiola will do a press conference on Friday ahead of their weekend game. In May 2022, last year, he was asked about the considerable smoke around Manchester City when it comes to this issue and the UEFA ban in 2020. What he said in May of last year was, the club, the hierarchy, they explain, I believe them. I said to them, if you lie to me, then the day after, I'm not here. I'll be out and I will not be your friend anymore. I put my faith in you because I believe you 100% from day one, and I defend the club because of that. So what he says on Friday, I don't know. I presume it may be similar-ish to that. But Guardiola on the record saying, if it turns out that you were lying to me, then I'm out of here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice broad statement of his. I mean, I think the thing is, like, it's not, I mean, clearly he's been attracted there by the challenge, but also by, you know, clearly huge money. And to some degree, it's different. Like, again, I think a situation is closer to home where there's been issues with clubs being punished, and, you know, managers are very aware of details at the club, you know, what's going on and what the crack might be to get stuff done. But you would assume, I mean, the fact is, this was the Mancini one that was so specific to a manager's contract. You know, like, there's still a negotiation with an individual. Okay, we're going to pay you X amount. You have to have some awareness of how this is sort of totaled up, or, you know, your representatives anyway would have some awareness around this.
Well, I'm sure Mancini asked, why am I going to Abu Dhabi for 4 days?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and okay, maybe doesn't need to be looking at the details of his payslip, right? But I mean, as I said, there was an issue here years back where I think it was Derry City were demoted for double payment of contracts. You know, like, obviously players would be aware of where their money's coming from. You take it fast forward to this joint organisation as Man City are now. Like, I can't imagine, you know, again, like, Pep is asking too many questions. Like, you know, he gets Haaland delivered, he gets this delivered. I presume he's told we've got everything covered here. Everything is fine in terms of financial fair play or whatever restrictions need to be met. I mean, you see City in some ways outwardly in the last while selling players and letting players go, and seeming to be in Pep's time there is loosely applying to sort of complying with regulations in some way. So a lot of this seems to be historic in some ways, but you don't know, like you don't know where it really ends, like as you say correctly, like when the Premier League have made such a grand statement of putting out that statement and feeling confident enough to do that, when the Premier League, as I said, like the clubs are the Premier League effectively in terms of where it started. Like it's hard to just roll back from it and just release a short statement in 18 months' time going, we are now satisfied, and you move along with it.
I don't think that'd be the end of it from Man City's point of view if that was the case. Let's say for a moment these alleged charges are proven and there is just a verdict of guilt hanging over Manchester City for a moment. That opens up a whole can of worms. For instance, can clubs who finish second, or maybe even who finished fifth and missed out on Champions League football and money in those Man City glory years, do they have recourse, financial recourse? Will they sue Man City? Will the Premier League make an award to them? I saw The Athletic talk to two different lawyers and it was contrasting opinions, which may well become a theme right across the next however many months. But one said, no, legally you can't go after them for the Champions League money you missed out on. Another said, oh no, you can. There's definite recourse there if they're proven to have cheated. So there's that whole area. I suppose maybe more interestingly, there is what is the punishment that is handed out to Man City?
Yeah, I mean, like that. I suppose the whole point about it is true. Like you would assume that people are looking at their options if they came fifth. Again, how far does that go? Like if you've Man City have bought players off clubs for a lot of money, for their from their ill-gotten gains, some people would say, and how far do you go along that road in terms of what you can reclaim? I mean, who knows? But you would think that to be impactful, the punishment has to impact on the future.
Nick Harris guessed points deduction, significant points deduction,
like a sort of a Derby County job, or
30-40 points charge.
Yeah.
Effectively ruling them out of winning a Premier League season and probably making Champions League football. Almost you're pitched into a healthy relegation scrap.
Well, it does seem like, I mean, the panel, the independent panel that they have here, they have a sort of there's a freedom for them to apply a punishment on it, which then will seemingly be appealed. But what if someone just went for 60 points or 7? They can't relegate them by the rules, really. Just again, because of the nature of what the Premier League is, because there's nowhere to technically relegate them to, because the EFL is a separate entity. So what do? Do you try and just hit them with a comically large deduction?
Okay. Yeah.
That's. I mean, that is the extreme end of it. To me, the going back in time and stripping of titles, I think that gets too complicated for some of the reasons we touched upon. I just can't see that being a road someone goes down.
Nick Harris said that as well, half said.
Really, yeah.
He'd spoken to a lot of people and apparently it's not as straightforward as, well, X, you've done X, punishment is Y, we just take the titles off you. Congratulations, Brendan Rodgers, you're a Premier League winner. Apparently there's all sorts of legalities there. I don't know why with Lance Armstrong it was done fairly routinely.
It's different. I mean, I suppose because you're part of a ladder and then there's a trickle-down effect. I mean, say Lance Armstrong, okay, but there wasn't a case that someone who'd finished third or fourth or fifth, there was a dramatic, they get bumped up to fourth, third or second, that there's a dramatic implication there for them. I seem to recall, I don't know if this was mentioned, I didn't hear, Nick, but being back in time, there was the Sheffield United West Ham case, which goes back to, I think, the West Ham signing of Tevez and Mascherano. And Sheffield United were relegated, but there was issues around West Ham's registration of players, and it was quite a protracted case. But I think whatever punishments or whatever verdict was reached, you could then go back and relegate someone, or to say particularly when it's drawn out over a period of time. Where do you fix the point of what seasons are affected? Okay, this is 2010, 2018, but where do you start? It's much more impactful to look ahead.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying,
I take that point. So let's say they go ahead with points deduction in the future. And that may well relegate Man City, or it may just confine them to an Aston Villa-like mid-table season, regardless of what they do.
They can see that people would say as well. They can afford that.
What do you think it does to their legacy over the last decade? Do you look at Aguero, and is there now a cloud over that in a very real way?
But wasn't there already in some ways a little bit of that too?
Yeah, I would have said.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
but the type of cloud whereby people said that's just the way the game is. I don't think it was a dominant cloud. I think there was just they spent lots of money.
But even an element of what's come out now, is in some ways the response would be, well, that's just the way the game is too.
Yeah.
You know, so like you're like there'll be rules in football, and I'm not equating it, but like there's obviously rules in football about, say, tapping up players. No one breaks the rules, but everyone knows the rules are broken.
Yeah.
You know, it's like all these. This is obviously an extreme element, and as I said, like, you know, if there's issues with falsified accounts, well, then you take your punishment. I think, but I think that. I don't know. I think people's view on Man City is there a suggestion that, I'm not saying you're saying it, but does someone wake up tomorrow or wake up today and think that City thing just isn't really what I thought it was? You know, it's just not the
breaking news.
God, I feel like, you know, it's someone's ruined Christmas for me here. You know, this is it. Like, I think everyone knows that the Man City thing is reflective of a I suppose a break in the Premier League history, or sort of a transition towards the next level. And obviously Newcastle is another level of that now. You know, is what happens to Newcastle over the next 10 years, would it be tainted in some way but it turns out that everything didn't add up financially, or is that opinion already there about them because of the nature of the takeover?
I think it'll actually come down there to the seriousness of the punishment. I think if they were hit with a really serious punishment, that would force everyone to really sit up and say, oh wow, this was above and beyond just the normal machinations of betting rules.
I think so.
Whereas if they were just given a fine for 20 million, we'd all forget that pretty quickly.
Fine is
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Have you